right, Shalom family, how's everybody doing? Hopefully you're all doing all right. Getting ready to get into today. And I'm going to make sure that we allow people to come in. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, protect, and protect this message. Amen. Today we're getting back into our Haven't Been Led as We Believe series. By the way, for those who are trying to make sure that you catch up with us, because we had issues yesterday with signal for our early riser Bible study session. Once again, we'll try to be on tomorrow at 6:45 a.m. Eastern. So those of you who would like to join us for that, feel free to do so. We will make sure that we're in position for you to be able to do so. Thank you to everybody who's on with us live or who's going to watch this later on. Very thankful and grateful to each and every one of you. Shalom, Ransom. Shalom, Sister Sharice, if I didn't say so already. How you doing, Grand Rising Henry? And we're continuing Having Been Led as We Believe this series. And we're going to speak on, we're going to need all of our moderators and everybody to be in position and be ready. I was actually praying about it. God told me to make sure a couple other people were on, but not just for today in general, but especially, in all honesty, specifically the reason why for today is because I already know with what we're talking about, it's going to be hard for people. We've been dealing with holy days in this part of Haven't Been Led as We Believe. We're going to continue to do so. However, this rising, I was told earlier, to make sure that we were prepared to go a different direction, one that I wasn't necessarily prepared for. I believe that I've had enough opportunity. Hey, shalom, Sister Benita. I've had enough opportunity to be ready to get back in position for and study up and be prayed up enough. And here we go. We're going to talk today. Before we get into that, once again, all honor due to the Most High Yahweh Elohim. All honor and praise to Him. We give Him honor and praise for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. We give all honor and praise to Him for my family, children, spiritual family, Yashreel, those who are trying to become Yashreel, those who are believers in the Word, those being grafted in, etc. We're thankful and grateful for each and every one of you who are on today. And we're thankful for every and any opportunity we have to be able to come in front of you all again, and again and again. We're on every rising at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We're on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. And we're thankful and grateful for another opportunity. Shalom to you, Sister Betty. Shalom, Brother Cole, Sister Chef. How you doing? Brother Jermaine. And everybody on all the platforms, everybody watching this live, watching this later on. All right, so today, specifically, we are going to be speaking on something that is necessary to have further conversation on, and something that people ask quite a bit about. And thank you for the agreement with the prayer for the amens. We are going to speak specifically, once again, this is Having Been Led as We Believe. And a lot of people say, why do you ever deal with the topic of racism? Shalom, Sister Dashima, how you doing? Why do you ever deal with the topic of racism? Right? If you are into the Bible, people want you to believe that it is not biblical, it is not spiritual, it is not a righteous endeavor to ever deal with that. Oh, see, you guys haven't been led as we believe. Yeah. That would be a happy Yule for you. I don't celebrate Christmas, but I do comprehend that if anybody should celebrate Christmas, it should be somebody who's pagan and things of that nature. So we were talking about that the other day. I don't know if it's your first time with us, but you should make sure that people don't misappropriate your holiday. But I'm thankful and grateful for everybody being on. And it's not our holidays, but if you're enjoying it, I hope I won't say I hope you enjoy it. At the end of the day, though, it's yours to have. And thankful and grateful to everybody, whether you agree, disagree, etc. We want this to be a place that's a safe space and conversation. We're just talking about what we believe, right? Shalom to Sister Tanya, to everybody who's on. So as we get ready to go into this, we're going to be speaking specifically on Um, and thank you for the likes and the shares, all that. We're going to be talking about why we talk about racism. Somebody will say, if you believe in the Most High, if you believe, some people believe in God and not Elohim, etc. But if you believe in the Most High, Shalom, Deborah, how you doing? Shalom is a little nutsy. I'm still not used to that name. If you believe in the Most High, like you say you do, why would you even bring up? Why would you bring up racism? Why would you bring that up? Why is it something that's important? And really, I think that people don't comprehend that if we're going to talk about this and be honest about this, the reason why it's brought up is because anytime you take away a sense of self, that's pretty much the ultimate sin. If you take away a sense of who you really are, that's what messes up. And I don't think people comprehend this, that racism actually denies, it's a denial, it's a system that denies culture, right? It's a system that denies culture at the end of the day. And that's really what people don't want to talk about. We're always big on culture first, because culture is going to help everybody else to move towards what they're supposed to. But it's a system that denies culture, and because racism not only takes away the culture of others and misappropriates and says we're going to make it our culture, it also does a thing where if you're going to deny others' cultures to take their culture, it means you have to leave your actual culture behind. You know, like we were talking about with Christmas and Ishtar and a lot of different things, Lupercalia, different things of that nature. We haven't even gotten into that much in this series so far. If you're, to basically break down people who do Lupercalia and all that stuff, is to basically say that their culture doesn't exist either, because now we're going to take somebody else's culture as far as Yeshua, and we're going to move it and make this Christmas thing, right? Or we're going to move it, instead of it being Passover, we're going to move it and we're going to take somebody else's culture, put all this stuff together, and eradicate who people actually are, to where people can't actually have any kind of semblance of culture. Forget even resemblance. You can't even resemble things, because we're not in a position to be able to do so. So racism is something that people swear up and down that shouldn't be talked about. And it's oftentimes interesting, they'll even compare people who talk about things as far as for the community, for the rights of others, a lot of stuff that pops up on channels that are similar to mine. And hey, Brother Dennis, how you doing? And you'll hear people talk about this stuff, or you'll see people talk about this stuff, and the reality is that we can't have honest conversation about any of this stuff because culture has been left alone. It's a system of oppression, and it all starts with competition, and it's a competitive vibe. It's a competitive vibe. So why do we talk about racism? Because people are so busy competing. They think they're like competing with people, but you have to understand you're competing against somebody else's culture. And we've got to a place where we eradicate culture, where we kill other people off. Thanks for being part of the community, Kay Lofton. We kill other people off, we kill their culture off, and then we sit here and we try to say, hey, you need to get along, or you need to go along to get along. And how are we going to go along to get along? That means that if somebody says go along to get along, what they're saying is stop being yourself, so we can control you. Remember, we talked about this as a Willie Lynch syndrome type thing. Self-control, people who have self-control are the most dangerous of people. People who have no sense of self are only under control, right? So people who have self-control are the most dangerous of people. People who have no sense of self can only be controlled, right? Therefore, and even people who have no sense of self are out of control even, right? We'll say, you need to control yourself. Well, if they don't have a sense of self, what is there to control? Intrinsically, right? Internally. So we have people who are fighting against this of all different walks of life. And these people who are fighting against this through all walks of life are dealing with this stuff. Shalom, Summer, how you doing? And people are trying their hardest to really, have people under control. And the more sense of self we have, the more things that come out to the table, the more actually there becomes one. Because really, at the end of the day, we all are one, right? At the end of the day, we all really are one. We're really one people. We're one unit. We're one group. And the more sense of self that you have, right? The more sense of self that you have, the more you're actually able to realize that. That's one of many reasons why we talk about racism. And any questions, comments, and concerns you have, feel free to put them in the chat. If you want me to try and get to them as best I can, try and put them in the question mark box. Today will be a little more free flowing, so I'll try my best to be better with the questions, and we don't have as many platforms open at the moment as we normally do. So we will. It should be easier for us to be able to do so. Thank you, Minister Tamara. I see you on here. Thank you, everybody, for the likes and the shares, all that great stuff. We appreciate you. So, when we're speaking on these things, it's crucial. It's crucial for us to, for us to be honest about this, to be more honest about this situation, for us to have more conversation about this. For us to have more conversation about this, and to have more different just talk about why racism is necessary to go through, why it's vital. Grand rising to you, Kimmy. You said, ask advice. I want to open a spiritual temple, or any advice. I want to open a spiritual temple. I mean, I'm not sure what the belief system is. I'm not sure what the goal is. I'm not sure when people say spiritual, they're not even usually thinking pneumatical, which is where spiritual comes from, which is supposed to be Stoic thought that marries, the spirit, which is attached to the soul, and the physical, which is attached to the soul, so that all three can work together. So I'm not even sure where I would begin with that. First of all, you gotta make sure your body's a spiritual temple. But after that, we'd have to have more in-depth conversation. That's fine. Well, so then I guess, if your belief is Kemetic, you got to make sure that you're into Ma'at and things like that, and make sure that your heart can be as light as a feather for your transition. If you believe you're a king or a queen, things of that nature. And if you believe in any kind of deism or whatever, people who say they're Kemetic in belief, a lot of times, because my people are part Kemetic, so a lot of people say they're Kemetic in belief and then kind of go to different places or vibes or whatever they want to call it. That belief system is going to start with the food that you eat as well, and things of that nature. Nevertheless, our focus on today is why do we talk about racism? If people say, if you believe this, racism shouldn't be something. You'll hear a lot of evangelicals, you'll hear some Christians, you'll hear different people of different belief systems. It doesn't matter what it is. I've heard Muslims say it, I've heard Taoists say it, I've heard some Buddhists say it. Why care about racism? Why do we believe as a community of people, why should you speak about it? Well, first of all, we believe that any system that takes away sense of self is evil. The word sin simply means to miss the mark, right? You can miss the mark purposefully, you can miss the mark out of ignorance. Nevertheless, we are missing the mark when we are supporting anything, Shalom, Sister Helen, when we're supporting anything that is coming out of racism. That's just what it is. So why do we talk about racism? We talk about racism because first, racism is a system. By definition, ISM, if we were to do some simple etymology, ISM makes it a system, right? ISM makes it a system. So we have to deal with something that was systematically put in place, and we have to deal with something that is systemic. It goes on whether or not we are a system that keeps flowing, whether or not we put into it or not, the system is designed to keep flowing, right? So these are the things that we have to comprehend, right? We already got it. Here we go. No such thing as racism. It's just another word for human nature, psychological. Okay. And I'm be honest with you, I forget what the word heuristics means. Nevertheless, I do comprehend what psychological means, right? Look up the word psyche. The word psyche, it actually means the soul. So that is why we study the soul, right? The soul is supposed to be a place where your thoughts are, where the pneuma or the spirit meets the man or the physical, or not even the man. Man actually means spirit, but the humus, the hue, right? The dirt body, and meets those places together. Pineal gland, things that flow, things that cause things to be calcified, slowing down of the body, emotional stress, DNA memory, things of that nature. And so once again, ISM is a system. Race is a word that means competition. So this person to say that there's no such thing as a competition called race, I think is going too far. But once again, a lot of people usually will automatically assume, which is dangerous in apologetics, to assume that somebody knows exactly where you come from without studying what the belief system of someone is. That's why this is a series. And if this person would like to catch up on the series, all you got to do is go to our YouTube channel and put in hashtag FindKofi, hashtag FindKofi. You'll be able to find this. But ISM means it's a system, right? Whether this person wants to say that I'm wrong or not, they're using words like psyche and psychology, but psychological, but something that is logic or ology, rather. Let's go with ology. Something that's ology, it means it's the study of. So if it's the study of psyche, it's the study of the soul. So when we're studying the soul, all right, we have to comprehend that there is a word, there is a part of a word, right? The ending of a word, we call it ISM. Yeah, I know it basically means itself. I used to have better comprehension of the word. Let me just say it like that. But regardless, it's so, and thank you for that. Thank you for helping me out. I know you're trying to do. Yeah, it proves it's a stomach, but psychological state that needs to be corrected and changed. Oh, wow. Okay. I don't know what just happened. Looks like I just lost power. That's interesting. Okay. So, well, let me go ahead and I guess and take this outside so y'all can see me. I don't know what just happened. That was weird. I guess I'll see if somebody can check our box for us while we're doing this. But anyways, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, he's going to check that for us. I don't know. Hopefully it'll be on in a second. Let me see if everybody else has power while we're doing this. But we'll continue this. Oh, you know what? Wow. I don't even know if I have. I just realized. I don't even know if I have my... I don't even know if I have where my keys are to go to the car. Oh, okay. I see him. I was about to say, we're going to be stuck. Because I don't even remember where I put my keys. Okay. Let's go ahead and go outside. I apologize, guys. But yeah, so we're talking about racism. Oh, man. One of the places when you're trying to live a little further in the outskirts of society and stuff, you deal with little weird stuff like this from time to time. Interesting. So our air conditioning's working, but our electricity's out. Anyways, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and go into this real quick. I got to change locations. They're going to check on for me and see what's going on. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, they're checking on what's going on for me. I don't know what's going on. Praise God, the children are still asleep, so they're not freaking out and running around already. But let's keep things going. Let's keep things moving. So, it's nice and cold out here. So, we're talking about racism and why we feel like, having been led as we believe, why we feel we should continue to make sure it's talked about and discussed. And why we should continue to press forward in this. I apologize, y'all. Get set up out here. Okay. Man, it's cold out here. Okay. All right, there we go. So, having been led as we believe, why would we talk about race? Yeah, I know, right? Whenever it's time to talk about something, there's always something that's going to happen. Thank you, Lex. Appreciate it. So, once again, getting back to the word racism, I think that's where we were. I believe that's where we were, right? Racism, ISM, put on the word, makes it a system. Race is a competition, right? So therefore, race being a competition, we're dealing with a system based off of competition. That's what the word racism really means. That's what the word racism really is talking about. So then I noticed some schools are wanting to teach critical race theory. I mean, yeah, I don't really care either way because my children don't go to school. And I don't believe school is something that's healthy for anybody the way it's set up. So that's not something that really affects me too much. But I get why people who are, especially people who are doing the Republican Democrat thing, get charged up about that type of stuff. But once again, racism is a system. Wow, it's so cold, everything's expanding. I can't even open this stuff up. Yeah, so racism is a system based off of, racism is a system based, it's a system based off of competition. And if you look at the system doesn't start with the competition for black slaves first. It was a competition for more land, the competition for the haves to keep having and the have-nots to keep having not. It's a competition for people, fighting against each other. It was a system set up to where only certain people, only nobles would be able to make things out. And it didn't become about what we now think of race as far as skin color until they needed slaves, because they were using Irish slaves and Prussian slaves and Russian slaves and Slavic. That's where the term slave even comes from, which is always interesting because people will go, in the Bible it talks about slavery, so how dare you talk about slavery or racism? And and it's like, in the Bible that word slave didn't exist yet. That's a different thing. And even in the Bible you're talking about, they had just came out of slavery and they made up laws to make sure that indentured servitude did not turn into slavery, right? When you look it up and read it with the proper context, you see what's going on. Nevertheless, racism is something that became about color later on, when all of a sudden they found that black slaves could do things that others couldn't do. Something as simple as being able to stay in the sun longer, right? And certain things as far as melanin, which is why still to this day, as much as people want to act like this stuff doesn't happen, still to this day, you have a melanin conference that goes on every 2 to 3 years. Right? Because people are still worried about eugenics and studying people to the point of saying, okay, what makes melanin better and this and that, how can we take it? That's why you still have things that happen, like a slave camp that was found not too far from where I am actually right now, recently in the news. There's a lot of stuff that people aren't comprehending and thinking about. So, people don't want to speak on racism being a system, but that's what it is. And that's why a lot of people miss the mark in it. When we talk about it, we're not talking about, people don't even understand how words work. The word racist should literally mean somebody who's proficient at a competition. Or if you want to talk about the human race, if you want to change the word to mean that, because like we said, people change words up, so we don't even know what they mean. But if you want to talk about the human race should be something where you're speaking on, this is what, somebody who's proficient at being a great human being. Just like if you have a protagonist, right? They're proficient at being the person who's we consider to be of good value or whatever. If you are a pianist, it means that you were great at playing the piano. If you're a flautist, you were great at playing the flute, right? If you're a scientist, you should be proficient in science. That's what the IST means. But a lot of people, because the word has been changed, believe that racist means that you're proficient in being a jerk towards somebody simply because of the color of their skin. That's what this stuff usually breaks down for us to be. That's as far as our knowledge and comprehension of that stuff goes. That's as far as we want it to go. In all honesty, that's as much as we don't really want anything more than that to come out of it. So our study of racism is usually pretty limited due to the fact that we're oftentimes just talking about how basically like how evil somebody is, and we don't talk about the fact that racism is a system. Like, you can't talk about racism without talking about a system. One of the videos I just posted recently, was very real. It talks about the fact you cannot talk about, for example, when people talk about integration, people don't want to talk about what happened to make integration happen. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, nobody wants to talk about what needed to happen for integration to happen. Even whether you believe integration is a good thing, bad thing, that's that can be part of the argument. But how do you talk about integration without talking about everything that had to happen to even allow for integration to get to where it was supposed to be? Right? How do you do that? You can't do that in reality. It's impossible really to do that in reality, but we try to do it all the time, where we try to address integration and never want to bring up how we even got to a place of integration. Because if you want to talk about integration, basically integration can be a form of revolution. And you know what had to happen for revolution? All revolutions require blood. And so you can't speak on integration without bloodshed. Right? You can't talk about integration without bloodshed. But what I want you to say to Joe Biden, I don't care anything about Joe Biden. He doesn't do anything for me. He doesn't do anything that affects my day. I live in a manner in which anything that he tries to do doesn't really affect me. I fight on behalf of people that have to deal with things that Joe Biden does. But Joe Biden, no president, in all honesty, has ever really done anything that's affected me. But especially now with my lifestyle, I could care less about what a president does. You said underneath the skin, humans are identical. See, so that's part of the system. We deny. That's like when people say, I don't see color. No, like underneath the skin, I don't have a womb. Right? Underneath the skin, I have a different blood type than somebody. Right? O positive is going to be different than A positive or B positive or B negative or whatever it is. Right? And not my DNA is different. No two people share the same DNA. Our fingerprints are different, but maybe you would say that's only skin deep. The amount of blood that I have in my body is going to be different than the amount of blood you have in your body. I'm 6'5.5". I don't know if you're 6'5.5", but if you're not, by sheer design, by sheer body type, we would not be the same, right? But something systemic tells us to ignore that. You know why we ignore that? That's why a lot of people come to the hospital and they say, "Doc, I don't feel great." And then the doctor looks at one type of person on his sheet and he says, and it's not even the sheet that was changed in the 1960s to say that we need to get back to the basics. It's the sheet that the insurance companies, the health insurance companies, tell them that this is what your weight should be, and this is, if you have this weight, this should be this. And it's not based off of everybody. It's based off of a fully functioning white male and a fully functioning white female, and even that is the ones that are rich. They don't look at the poor. They don't look at this and that. They say this is what we think as far as rich people are concerned, and people who make this stuff up, that insurance should cover, because they want to be covered. The people who own it want to be covered themselves. And so we say everybody should get the same thing. Right, but that's why black women deal with fibroid cysts. Something like a high 80s to low 90% of black women are going to deal with fibroid cysts sometime in their life. A whole bunch of them are going to deal with endometriosis. A whole bunch of them are going to deal, living in the same place, in the same area, all that stuff, getting the same medical treatment. Well, not really the same medical treatment, but going to the same doctors when they go, and they're still going to be dealing with stuff that's different. You know why? Because their body type is different, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just makes sense. Like if you have two fully functioning black people, let's say I'm fully functioning, there's another black person sitting right next to me, to assume that we have the same thing inside us just because we're both black is ludicrous. It doesn't make sense, but that's what we're trained in. That's what we're taught. That's how we live. That's how we roll. Somebody taught us that. There's a system that teaches us that that type of mindset is okay, and it's not okay. Just somewhere far beyond this world, I feel nothing anymore. All right, I don't know where we were going with that part, but okay. Said MIC in the house, all right. Why can't I ask you to talk about female narcissists? I don't know. Who said you couldn't? I mean, I'm not focusing on that. Hey, babe, my wife is on the Honorable Maya, Bloom and Flourish. You can follow her at, not at A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. We're thankful and grateful for her for being on. See, racism is about economic power to dominate the other minority groups. Yeah, it's a system. But it's a system based on, by the way, not just minority groups. It's really designed to take care of anybody poor. It focuses on the minority group because that's how it started, and that's where it got it started, and that's where what it's going to keep it together, is getting people to keep believing that black people are on the bottom and so-called white people are on the top, even though so-called white people are busted and disgusted too. Like, it's always interesting to me, the people in the trailer parks are talking about the people in the hood, is the people in trailer parks don't have problems with dope and crack and being used in prostitution, and police officers showing up and beating the mess out of them too, and all that. I mean, they give them more chances, but they do the same thing. But people aren't able to look at those things. Racism is a system that causes us to take away knowledge of self, and even look at what we're going through as communities and groups, and say it's somebody else's fault, it's that community's fault, rather than the people who are governing you that you keep voting in, by the way. Let's see, Prince of Blake says, I study history. I know the pivotal moment when slavery went from something humane to economic tool. When was slavery ever humane? I mean, if you talk about indentured servitude, that's different. But once again, we even use the term slave. The term slave wasn't something that was used by people back then. And you had conditions where you were supposed to make sure you treated your, we call them slaves, but it been indentured servitude with respect. And even if it was somebody that was slave, it was more of an imprisonment. There was only, and I'm not saying all this is righteous. I'm just saying this is factual, contextual facts, right? First and foremost, we got to keep it 100 and say that if we're going to talk about slaves, so to speak, using modern, Eurocentric terms, because that's what it is. It's not our terms. But if we're going to speak on someone else's terms, unfortunately, we have to do that. So let's do that. If we're going to speak on the term of the kidnapper, then the kidnapper does something different than what we did. If you were a slave back then, you were somebody that had to be. If you were a slave back then, you were somebody that had to be an enemy caught in war. You had to be somebody that did terrible things, and you were basically, they didn't have prisons, right? Like we have this prison, the pipeline system. They didn't have prisons. So if you murdered somebody, you might have to pay off that debt, because a slave is in debt, and a person in debt is a slave, right? So that's what a slave is. So, hey, you messed up, you killed somebody, we could kill you. Rather than kill you, though, you're going to be in debt. Maybe you got to be in debt to that family. Maybe you have to be in debt to that community. Maybe you do have to work 5 years of it off. Maybe you got to work 20 years off, right? Whatever it is, but you become a slave due to what you did to somebody else. It's different than now. Now, you become a slave because you carry marijuana, right? 13th Amendment. You're allowed to become a slave once you're in prison. You become a slave because you talk bad to the warden. So the warden says he's going to throw you in the hole, and then he's going to make sure that you work every day of your life as many minutes as he can. You become a slave because you are you're not a non-citizen national, but you're a citizen of the corporation of the United States, and therefore you even though your straw man is already paid for, you work your butt off to continue to make sure that you make more money on it, right? To make good for the corporation's debt to the federal government, right? It's a different mindset back then. Even when people use these terms slave, the term slave wasn't something that we used. That word didn't exist, which means that the terminology isn't there. The study of the term, you can't study the term that we didn't even use, right? People hit you with this all the time. The first people that were slaves were white. The first people that existed weren't white, and the first people that therefore would have came over, like, you gotta understand, even the term white didn't exist until recently. Like, there's no real such thing as a white person, because there's no real such thing as a person that's clear or walking around bright. That's what the word white originally used to mean. We take somebody else's culture. That the reason why we call colors is because somebody else in their culture used those things, right? So like in French, if you're going to use the term pink, for example, you don't say pink. You can say something close to carnation, but usually you would say something like rose or rose, because a rose is pink. So they talk about a specific type of pink, which is like why some people, when they see pink, they might think that it's more, you might think it's red or more fuchsia or something like that, but they're thinking pink is lighter or closer to like neon pink colors or something without the brightness. It's a different culture going on. So somebody's talking about slave and doesn't even realize slave doesn't fit in to Israel. It doesn't fit in to Shwi. It doesn't fit in to Mali. It doesn't fit in to Kemet. Now Kemet did do something like chattel slavery, especially when they got upset at a group of people. So we got to be honest about that, yeah. But when you're talking about certain types of slavery, you got to be careful. Don't, people just go, well, black people were African people. Well, not all African people did the same thing. It's like Irish people. Irish people were slaves, but they don't want to call them slaves. Irish people don't like to be called slaves because Irish people they don't feel like you're supposed to compare people's oppression. That's why when you hear people in America who do this, well, my people are Irish, and Irish people in Ireland don't like that at all. I know because I'm cool with a lot of people in Ireland, real talk, and they teach me this stuff a lot. And so they called me up, like, this is the third page, because we get taken down on TikTok quite often, on all platforms quite often. But they when we were at the first page, that was like some of the biggest supporters we had. When we got to the tens of thousands, whatever it was, 50,000, whatever, before we had to restart again on the second time, before we now restarting the third time. It was them, I think, that made up probably like at one point, probably like a good 15% of the people that we had. And we were supposed to go over to Ireland to do a tour over there, before travel and everything started getting banned. You said you're 5'5", LOL, okay. Yeah, Willie Lynch syndrome, right. Charles said racism won't go away. Humans are too competitive not to hate on each other. And unfortunately, that's the reality that people have to think. You say coexist, should we blend? I believe that it's possible for people to blend in. I believe that people don't like this answer, but I don't believe in segregation, but I do believe that black people should come together, and heal. I don't, a lot of people don't like it when I say this, but they think I'm thinking because I say we're better than white people or whatever. I don't believe that black people are in a condition as a whole. I'm talking about across the diaspora. I'm not talking about just the eastern side of the diaspora or the western side or the southern part or the northern part. We forget those parts exist too. I'm talking about all over the world. When it comes to the way that black people look at themselves in comparison to white people, there are very few in percentage that are actually in a position where they look white people in the eye, not just with a respect for them, but getting a respect back and being worthy of said respect. Because you got to comprehend, that's one of the dangers about racism. People don't want to talk about this. Racism caused a lot of people to look at themselves wrong and to deny their own story and deny their story and take on his story, which we're still talking about. People still to this day, show me historical evidence. Well, his story is all messed up. I can show you historical evidence, right? Like, we even carry words that we don't comprehend, that they are part of something different. And so, it's like, for me, I don't think, like, put it like this. Let's say there's a relationship, because I do a lot of life coaching, marital coaching, things of that nature. If there's a relationship going on, and I believe, and somebody's coming out of a bad relationship and they haven't let go of certain things from the prior relationship, I wouldn't dream of co-signing on a relationship where, bruh, you still blaming your girl for things you could have done, and you still holding on to hurts, like she cheated on herself or whatever, but you're trying to get with this new girl, but you're telling me all women are cheaters. Well, you're going to mess up this woman and mess up their relationship if you're not going to deal with her as a particular person, like as a different individual altogether. You can't even be in a mindset to make that work, or vice versa. And so I wouldn't recommend them coming together. And a lot of people don't realize and don't want to be honest about the fact that everybody was hurt by racism. Everybody was messed up by racism. Black people, we know our story. Let's not forget, though, that there were little children when they had the picnics, when they would pick an N-word and they would hang them up and things of that nature. When they had the picnic, don't forget that some of the people in those pictures are little 3-year-old girls and 3-year-old boys who are being taught by their parents that mess is okay. What does that do to a person? What kind of anger towards somebody has to be generated that's not even your own? You got to carry somebody else's weight. There's a reason why this is hurtful and harmful. There's a reason why a lot of people who benefit from that system that was in place are still struggling and dealing with that. There's a reason. It's hard to deal with, and that's stuff that they have to carry, and then to have to be taught that was righteous and that's okay. Like, there's a lot of healing that has to go on both sides, and we're trying to take people who have never gone through the therapy, who have never had forget the conversation with each other, have never had the conversation within their own selves, right? Like, the first place, before I can hold my wife accountable, I have to hold myself accountable. Before I talk about my wife need to do this and that or whatever, and you ain't doing this, what am I not doing, right? We're talking about everybody should just come together and forget everything. Nobody's even able to be accountable for anything right now, right? Like, how do you come together with people that can't even be accountable? I don't see color. That's a way of not being accountable for the fact that, hey, we were taught that color is a bad thing, right? But hey, what if everybody's color is a great thing? And we should love everybody, including their color, and talk about why we're so hesitant to say, man, you know what, I love your brown skin. You know what, your red hair is nice. You know what, your locks are amazing. Hey, your whatever, right? Like, why are we so busy telling people I can't see that? Like, if you can't see me, you can't even identify who I am. Think about that. The reason why, like, if I were to come online and you guys know that this is Kofi, right? I'm Kofi. And all of a sudden you turned it on and it was somebody that didn't look like me, what would be your assumption? Your assumption would be, this is not me. So now you would start asking questions like, did you take his phone? Did he allow you to come on? Why would he allow you to come on when we came looking for him? There's questions that are attached to it because everything that's part of me helps to identify who I am. Right? Once again, racism is a system that takes away the ability for us to deal with self. Right? And if you take self out of self-control, the only thing left is control. The more that we can keep having people run away from knowing themselves, the more opportunity there is for somebody to control you. That's what's being used. And that's why we talk about it. It's a system of control. Remember, in Willie Lynch's letter, he made it a point to say, not only are we doing this to black people, we're doing this to everybody. He said, never miss an opportunity to teach this to your wife and to your children. He said, you got to teach your overseers this. You have to teach the people who work for you, your servants. Everybody has to be in on this thing that says that we distrust people on this level. He said, so we've got to teach people that disagree with this. We got to teach our own families who disagree with this. We have to teach them that this is what's supposed to happen. This is reality. And this is why people get upset, because guess what? One of the only places that, I don't really care one way or the other about critical race theory, because I don't care about theory, right? Teach facts and teach contextual facts, right? Don't holler at me about theories, right? Because theories go to a place of theory. So even by the fact that they would label it theory, you have to be careful, because what are they really trying to teach? Just like when they say Black Lives Matter, but then when you look at the Black Lives Matter pyramid, it says more about LGBTQ than Black Lives Matter. Well, that's blackface, right? Like, I look at things for what they are, right? And racism is a system that causes us to still think, like, this is why in racism, if a ally feels like they're not getting enough credit from the black community, you'll see the allies start saying wild and crazy stuff. And people are like, I didn't even know. How could this person say this? We thought that they were cool. They were an ally. They were one of us. No, in racism, hey, I'll help you. Right? I'm not saying everybody's like this, but check out what the system does to a lot of minds. Okay, hey, I did this for you. Why won't you lift me up? Hey, I did this for you. Why? I took 5 minutes out of my day to make a video. How dare you guys say that I can't use the N-word? I mean, you hear people say stuff like this. It's because there's a system. The system causes the sickness, right? In your body, there's you have things like antibodies. You have, in your nervous, you have a nervous system, right? You have the nervous system, central nervous system. You have the system of things that cause your blood to flow. You have a system of things that causes the gallbladder to be in sync with the liver, which has to be in sync with the pancreas, which has to be in sync with this and that, etc. Like, you have systems in your body, right? You have systems. You have systems of enzymes, right? You have systems. One of the reasons why we have this copper right here, the copper, it helps for the cells to be able to make sure that they hold magnesium. The magnesium works with all the enzymes in the body to ensure that your cells all over your body can digest, because digestion doesn't only happen in the stomach, it happens throughout the entirety of your body. Right? Whenever you put that deodorant on, when you put that shea butter on, when you put that lotion on, your body is eating. It's all a system. Right? It's all a system that comes into being and into play. And we don't want to talk about a system. If you can't digest food, then your body's going to be off. But people don't want to talk about, like, if we can't even digest color, how are we going to talk about, right? Like, lack of self. If we can't digest, like, I have to talk honestly about self-accountability. If I can't digest and say, you know what, my people are the ones that are so busy saying, give us the handout, that now it's affected us generationally to where now we're looking towards democracy to give us something that it wasn't created to give. right? You said it took years for a doctor to diagnose endometriosis. Yeah, and even with the, you have to be careful with that. Even when it comes to doctors, doctors do, like the only, you have to understand, like when somebody says you got fibromyalgia, somebody says you have, whatever, if they say you got COVID even, you have to understand how that works. They'll have a list of symptoms. So let's say they got a list of 10 symptoms you're supposed to have. If you got 10 symptoms out of the 10, if they see that you got 4 or 5, then they'll say, okay, we don't really know if they have what they have, but we say they got 4 or 5 symptoms, so they probably got it. And then they try to treat it. That's the way that they do. So when they give the word diagnosis basically just checks out to mean guess. They're giving their best guess. They're not telling you exactly what you have. And that's cultural too. It's cultural as well. That's, I'm sorry. GG says, so you identify the problem, what solutions do you propose? Well, we give solutions quite often. Like, we believe in education. That's why we give classes for donations, instead of making people charging people hundreds of thousands of dollars for education and having them pay it off for the rest of their lives. We're making sure we're working on Yah's land project, where we're going to own 10 50 acres plus, and looking at doing that by the end of next year. That's why we make sure that we come visit people. That's why we make sure we give clothes and food out. That's why we teach people how to grow their own food and how to trade food with each other. That's why we're trying to make sure that we tell people, hey, get your businesses out there and start doing so. Even when a lot of people may not know this or whatever, some have been around. Every time I use this is from one of our sisters here. I try to make sure I show people that it's possible. I tell people how you can discharge debt instead of having to pay debt off. And usually when people ask the question like that, I think the assumption is because that's what we do in racism. The system is set up. See, they're talking about the system, but they don't have anything about it, so just keep in the same system. Even if I had absolutely nothing to add, the fact that I'm calling it out is still something that's warranted. Maybe somebody else should find a solution. Like, my question would be the same thing. Now that I'm giving you stuff, do you have solutions besides just, hey, kumbaya and forget about it? Because that hasn't worked since 1500s, 1400s, back to Rome. But nevertheless, we do have solutions. You can go to Kofi-Ofori.com. That's my name, Kofi, but instead of the underscore, put a hyphen, Kofi-Ofori.com, and you can look at things that we're building up, or you can get in contact with us if you want different solutions. But a lot of people go there. That's part of the systemic thing. If somebody speaks out against it, now we got to tell you why it's wrong. A woman talks about being raped, somebody's going to come there and talk about, well, you shouldn't have been wearing that dress, right? It's the same mindset. Yeah, relaxers have been proven to give fibroids. Yeah. Andrew says, you seem like you could be a teacher, except that some school systems don't teach certain things. Yeah, that's why we have our own school that we started, because school systems don't teach what we need. Hallelujah, Colvin, I see you. Said, you have children. You have 3 children that are half black and white. We all bleed red. We're all the human race. I despise division of any kind. Well then, but you're okay with dividing against me? right? I have children in the mix. And I'm not going to get deep into my story. We just talked about this the other day. Actually, it brought me to tears because my wife found a picture of my mom and I was able to post it for you guys. What was this, last week, 2 weeks ago, where we talked about the fact that people make an assumption about me. My mom basically was white. She passed for white. And if you look at my grandmother, y'all would just straight up say she's a white woman. I come from a mixed race family. But guess what? My mom had to be honest with me, because if you see my brother and sister, you see it more. But if you see a picture of my mom and I, you see we look pretty much identical, even though she passed for white. The only thing that people saw was my skin color. I would walk around with my mom, and my mom would get irritated because they'd be like, oh, you look like your father, even if they never met my father. Because my mom looked like she was white. She even presented herself as white. And so she would get upset. She would get frustrated. So when people say that, yeah, you might say, well, my children knows him, blah, blah. Guess what? I am a child of a quote unquote mixed race family, even if I don't seem to look like it. I have everything in the world of me, in all honesty. You put any culture in front of me and you give me about, maybe 2 minutes or so max, I can probably show you where somebody in my family is attached to them, not just by marriage. I'm talking about by blood. I carry pretty much everything, right, on the planet in me. My family does. And so when I speak, I'm not speaking about somebody who's just being like, I hate white people or this and that or whatever, has no clue what they talk about. When I went to school, when I tried to fit in with white people and tried to be a skater or something like that, guess what? I was still the token. And when I tried to hang out with black people or whatever, guess what? I was still somebody who spoke too white or did this or whatever. And when I went and tried to was in the military, I was good enough to make sure that I trained all the other people in the military to do some of the things that they're doing to lead the country right now, but was never good enough to make sure that I was able to make rank. Okay, so people who say that, you're talking to the wrong brother. Right now, I'm not saying that we should exclude you or your children, and that's what we said. Racism is a system. You didn't create the system. You live in a system, and guess what? Your children being half black, half white, people aren't going to look at them as half chocolate and half milk. They're going to say that they're chocolate milk. They're not going to look at them as half black or half white. There's going to be certain communities, certain corporations, certain systems, certain governments, certain governing, certain people, certain things that they're going to walk into, and people aren't going to say those babies are. I'm telling you from experience. So listen to a baby that grew into a man, all right? And them babies that you're talking about, they're going to have these similar experiences, all right? I'm telling you, as somebody who's going through, raise them babies in a manner in which you don't ignore the fact that there's black in them or white in them. Have them love themselves, but comprehend that there's going to be people that don't love them, and their people that don't love them is going to be based specifically on the fact that they don't look like everybody else and they don't fit in. People see this, right, my hair, and they don't like it just because I don't fit in. So it's easy for people to see this and say the same thing, and people are going to say the same thing. It doesn't matter. Color doesn't matter. I don't see color, and it hurts every time they say that to me. It hurts me when they say that. I don't like it when people say they don't like my color, because you don't like me. When you say you don't see my color, you say you don't see me. Once again, like, you're denying who a person is. You're killing off a person so that whatever you leave alive is something that you can deal with. I want you to deal with the whole me. I don't love a piece of my wife. I love the whole wife, right? If my wife and I get in an argument, I don't get to be like, well, you know, whatever. No, I have to take the argument in mind and learn from it and say, okay, I'm going to carry this. This is part of my wife. She said this for a reason. Let me make sure I set things in order. I don't get to just ignore that and say, let's go ahead and move with whatever it is. I only like certain parts of my wife. I don't want to speak anything negative over my wife, so I'm going to focus on something else. Let's say I had a friend, and a friend ended up dealing with a issue or whatever, a health issue, and they can't walk the same. I don't get to just be like, man, you know, I mean, I liked you when you could walk, but no, I have to like the whole thing about the person. He said racism comes in all colors. People need to acknowledge that racism is a system. Racism is a system. Like, you keep trying to make it about a person. You guys are trying to take it to a place that I'm not even in. You're trying to make it about a person. The person didn't create racism. Racism is the system that people live in. You can be somebody who's not a racist and still live in racism. That's the point. That's why we teach it. Even in the Bible, right? People say, how can you be a pastor and talk about it? Even in your Bible, they deal with racism. You don't think Kemet in Israel was a racism issue? You don't think Canaan in Israel was a racism issue? You don't think that Israel against Israel was a racism issue? Like, study some stuff. It's all up in there. You don't think Yashua, when he's with the woman at the well and she says, look, man, you Hebrews ain't supposed to talk to us, and that, you don't think that's a racism issue? There's a system set up. Do I support Brother Rizza from the nation? I like Brother Rizza. I don't know if support as far as, like, do I give him money or anything like that? I don't think I ever have, but I believe he has a lot of great stuff. We were just talking about him yesterday. Right, and at the end of the day, it's a great question: mixed race or mixed culture, you know. But like when the person says it about, my children are mixed, and not, it's like, man, if you just did some history on who you talking to, bro, like, or sis or whoever it was, I'm not who you think I am. Like, you're making me something that is not. I don't believe that somebody's better than somebody else just because they're white. I believe there's a system that comes out that people are raised in that makes people believe that they can be better because they're white. But I don't believe that's intrinsic. I believe they had to be taught that, just like we had to be taught to not love ourselves. I hear you on that. We're different, but we are all made the same. But even the sentence, in all honesty, is cognitive dissonance to me. Like, if we're different, but we are all made the same, either we're same or we're different. I don't believe that. See, I don't believe in equality. I believe it's the differences that make us great. So I need somebody to be different than me so I can uplift their differences. Other people say, I need people to come down to my level so we can all be the same. That's crab in the barrel mentality to me, you know? So I'm saying, like, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying the way that works in my mind is cognitive dissonance. I can't hold that because it's like we're the same, but we're not the same. But I'm going to make the same and not the same the same. It's I think it's a fallacy. I don't want to be my wife. I don't want to have to worry about like my wife does stuff that I'm not really interested in doing. Like I love taking care of my children. I'm not excited about carrying them, but my wife is designed to love carrying them and love having somebody make sure they feel secure. Like we work well together. You know, my wife is great with taking finances and doing certain things with the finances. You know, I can bring stuff in. So I can say that instead of being like, I'm the man, I got to take care of the money. Hey, if you're great with finances, you were great before you met me. Heck, you were making more than me at one point, right? You were, you know, so if you great at doing the finances and stuff, why not take it? It's our differences that make us great. You know, if there's times when people are trying to do stuff or make deals and things, she feels like she got to step in because she feels like I'm being too nice and somebody might try to walk all over me. And even though I might not like it in the moment, I respect it, I appreciate it because I know she got my best interest at heart. Like we're different, and I'm thankful and grateful for the differences. I appreciate the differences. To appreciate means to lift up, right? To lift up in value even. Oh yeah, that one drop rule. I see you, Digger Khan. Into the lesson you've been trying to teach your son. I apologize, I don't know which one, but hopefully we're on track with it. Looks like we are. Coleman says, as an artist, I break faces into groupings so I may draw, so I can notice familiarity is a bit easier. Interesting. I guess that's when people do what does that do, like the little, not cross, but the thing that's perpendicular or whatever, and you put it in the different quadrants or something like that. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. I don't know. I'm not a great artist. I mean, I can play music. I guess you can say that's artistry. Just Walana says, yes, been suffering 11 years with my back. Turns out it's my kidney disease. So now I have 11 years to... I didn't catch the whole thing. First of all, I'm sorry to hear about that. Hopefully, prayerfully, we'll be praying for you. Hopefully everything works out with that. Said, love is the answer. Agape love. Separation isn't the answer. We need communities where we live, work. I'm sorry. And love each other. Okay. So for me to say that I need to get myself together is you assuming that means that I don't love you. Agape, when you're going to the Greek, there's the 4 forms of love. You've got eros, which is the erotic, the storge, which is like the communal, so to speak, the phileo, which is the brotherly, and then you've got agape, which is self-sacrificing. All right, sure. So in order for me to be able to sacrifice, you're saying sacrifice for everybody, no sacrifice for my community. I feel like, look, I can't sacrifice for you. I don't even know you. Like, I want to sacrifice for you. I'm sacrificing for you by putting my face out here to this stuff, right? By having to have several things on several different social media, several channels, have to keep coming back up and up over and over again, and people try to drag my name through the mud to be able to kick me off again and again and again, and me have to come back again and again and again. That's sacrifice, but I don't sacrifice for you the way I sacrifice for my son. Like, I sacrifice differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. And for you to say that's when people, once again, they want to bring the term agape to what they want it to be, take it out of context. Like, even Yahshua, when he said, man, I wish that I could bring all Israel into my bosom. And then he came back still for Israel in Revelation chapter 7. They got to be sealed. But then he's also going to make sure everybody comes in. He died for everybody, but he kept his promise. Like, familial stuff, familiar, that's that's what we're talking about. It doesn't mean that I don't have any love for anybody else, but I'm not going to sit here and act like. That's why Romans 8:19 talks about that the creature is waiting on the manifestation of the sons of Elohim. The creature is all creation, but the sons are different. Right? The creature is different than the sons. But people don't want to talk about that, right? Here's another thing people don't want to talk about. When have black people as a whole, right, copper-colored people, if you want to throw that term in there too, when do people of color, if you want to throw that term in, but specifically, let's go with black people, right? And we can do black people in America. I was going to talk about all over the world. It holds true. When have black people been at their greatest as far as economically, spiritually, emotionally, being one, et cetera, et cetera? When have we, in the history of mankind, when have we been at our best? right? When have we been at our best? Right? When have we been at our best? We've been at our best when we haven't been. See, even in that, follow me, Patriot. Look, I'm sorry that you had to go abuse from any kind, right? Whether it was from a black person or not. And I'm glad that you forgave, because I've forgiven a lot of white people who've done a lot of wild stuff to me and to my family and to my mother and to my grandmothers. Nevertheless, okay, you've forgiven them. Does that mean that all black people did that? No, right? And so am I saying that all white people are doing something to us? No. What I'm saying is that I need a place to heal. I'm thankful and I'm grateful you got a chance to heal. And out of your healness came forgiveness. I forgave so I could heal, right? But what you're saying is I don't know. At this point, that's why I said I know this is going to be dangerous for some. And like we talked about earlier in the series, this is not for everybody. My goal is not to say everybody's got to agree with me. I know that not everybody will agree with me. Matter of fact, our numbers are way down today, even from just restarting. We haven't even got up to what we were in the tens of thousands every day, but our numbers are way down today, and they go down when I talk about specific things, right? So I get it. I comprehend that this is something that a lot of people don't want to hear or talk about. That's fine. It's not my goal to say you have to agree with everything I say, and it's not my goal to say that I have to be better than you because you don't agree with me. That's not what this is about. Like, my goal is to bring it out and say clearly, like, the reason why we talk about racism, because this is an emotional thing. People are tied to this emotionally. This is nostalgic for people. There's this nostalgia tied to it, right? People are frustrated by this, but there's a nostalgia tied to it. You said my wife is a white woman? No. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but no, my wife is not a white woman at all. I said my mother passed for white, if that's what you heard, but she wasn't a white woman either. And my grandmother looked whiter than her by societal terms. Nevertheless, whether she was white or not, I don't know what it would mean. But no, my people on here have seen my wife. And my wife comes on and does teaching of her own. She has her own channel. If you'd like to see my beautiful wife, you can go check her out at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. Somebody keeps saying, can I talk about female narcissists? We're not talking about that today, but okay, like, females can be narcissists too, I guess, if that's what you want. Like, narcissism is terrible, whether it's a system that's being applicable to men or women that want it to apply to themselves. Somebody that thinks of themselves first and everything is a dangerous person to be around. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we love self, but are not so selfish with love of self to where we actually are not just selfish, but we're, I guess we just are self-absorbed. So at the end of the day, narcissism is bad on any level, right? And if you're dealing with female narcissism, then get away from it. That's not my focus today, but you keep bringing up that. I pray that whatever you're dealing with that keeps you going to go up with that. If you have an issue with a woman you're going through that with, I don't know if you're having a woman listen to this, that you're waiting for me to tell her off about herself. If you're you've dealt with female narcissists in the past over and over again, and you keep running into them, and therefore maybe you need to deal with some things as far as why are you being attracted, or what attracts them to you, or whatever, or why, pray about those things. But that's not really my focus today. Thank you, though. It's been addressed. If you want to address it further, we can even talk about it one-on-one. I don't even mind setting aside time, but this is just not what I'm called to this rising. I apologize. You said, I understand how y'all feel. Being in relationships with another race, I only tasted a small bit of racism. Okay. I guess you're saying you understand how we feel. Are you saying, so when you say y'all feel, I'm assuming that you're not black? I'm looking at the picture. I can't really tell. Looks like you might be a POC. But really, that's something I think is dangerous. I never tell anybody, look, I lost my mother. And when other people lose their mother, I don't say I know how you feel, because that's your mother. It's your pain. Why would I try to tell you that I know exactly what your pain is like? That's the stuff we're talking about. There's a system that has us disconnected. Like, Willie Lynch didn't say that we're going to create differences. Willie Lynch said we're going to take differences that are already there and make them bigger, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging the differences. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging the differences. Sonia says, then as a child, we'll carry that for generations. Yeah. Amen. Wow, that's from a while ago. Wow, let me catch up. Yeah, amen. My wife and I are definitely a team. Dashima says, I don't want to be the same as... Oh, that's why, because I was talking about the differences between my wife and I. Okay. All right. Let's see. Evolve into a God. Okay. It says, not being rude. Does she work full-time and you don't? No hate. My parents are the same. So I said she used to make more money than I did. Neither one of us works full-time. Neither one of us works as far as has a job. We're in our work. We don't have a job. We don't have 9-to-5s anymore. At one point, she was the ultimate bread maker. At a couple points, was the only bread maker. However, you know, she made it very clear to me that that wasn't her goal in the beginning, and that, you know, hasn't been the case for some years now. And really, she has her own business that we were able to start through things that we do now, to where she's a herbalist and she sells her own product. So we work together very well in that. Coleman said, I definitely want to be aware of culture and values and morals and the synergy there. Amen. Minister Tamara said, we weren't all the same or equal. Racism makes people lazy and ignorant. He said that, and the query in earnest, as I am back at the point where we are, it's better to marry than to burn. Yeah, that's another thing. You know, racism even deals with only certain people could be married. So when you deal with your idea of marriage, like when you walk down the aisle and do all that stuff, you don't walk down the aisle according to your culture, right? Even in the Bible, it doesn't say anything about walking down the aisle. That's somebody else's culture. That's somebody else's stuff that they do. You never saw that in Africa until somebody else brought that. You never saw that in in Turtle Island until somebody brought that. You never saw that in India until somebody else brought that, right? That's not our culture. That's not even biblical culture. That race is a social construct. Well, once again, race has been turned into something through the social construct. Race is a competition. And the competition became about white and black. So, yeah, you can see, even when people say it's a social construct, it's still reality, right? You can be in the system and not of it, though. So when I go out and I got to deal with stuff and it's dealing in racism, sure, okay, I know how to deal with that and work my way through all that. But at the end of the day, I'm separate of it. Like, somebody comes looking for me and says, you got to do this, or you got to pay this tax, or you got to do... No, I don't have to. I'm not of that. You know, even in Caesar stuff, I have a way to be able to comprehend. Caesar, you wrote this law and stuff. I know how to protect myself in your law. I also know how to come out of it. That's sovereignty. That's being a king or queen. You said we raising our own communities, own culture. Yeah, when we were, and see, I got all the way out of that. The best time for black people that I was attempting to talk about that earlier. The time when black people were at their best all over the world is when segregation happened, right? Or if it wasn't segregation outright, because I don't believe in segregation outright, but when black people had neighborhoods of their own. If you go, you deal with white people, you do whatever, but you go back to your own neighborhoods, right? And that goes with kingdoms, that goes with democracy, that goes with capitalism, whatever constructs, you know, because those are social constructs that are more important than race, in all honesty. Those are the ones that do the damage. Those are the ones that caused racism. Nevertheless, you know, those are the things that you have to look at. When we're obeying the Most High, we could definitely say that as well. That's a good point. You know, so black people have been at their best when we were to ourselves, and we were able to deal with things through our culture, right? Like, you can say whatever you want. Now, I'm not here to say that I believe that black people should never be in the position or having white people around. I'm not here to say or teach that white people can't be grafted in to what we're doing. But, you know, just like anybody else, like I take even black and white out of it. Like, that's part of the thing that makes people upset about it. Take black or white out of it. There are people that are part of my family, right? But I don't hang around them. Like, they're broken and they do bad stuff and they're a bad example to my children, and they're drunk, they hide, and this or that, right? They go to prison, they in and out of prison. Got love for them if they need me to. Like, I'll show up. Like, you know, we need to, like, yo, somebody trying to take you out, you ain't gonna take out you ain't gonna take out my cousin. Like, hey, I'm gonna try to protect you with it, but if I gotta pull that thing out to make sure we both make it out of here alive, we gonna make it out alive. Like, I still got love for you, but understand, like, I'm not trying to do that every day. If you're on the street every day, if you every day still trying to pull that thing, and if every day, like, you still trying to, crip walk on them folks, every day you still trying to make sure that you wearing them colors, like, I don't got time for that anymore, right? So there's separation there. But if when you get to a place where you mature and you start saying, hey, cuz, show me how to invest. Hey, cuz, you know what? I want to make sure that I do this and that for my family. All those different things. Like, hey, show me how to be better. Show me how to do. Look, man, I just got beat out the gang, man. Like, it's proven. Like, I'm out. I'm trying to do better. Like, yeah, so we gonna connect. But until then, like, I'm separated from you for the most part. Like, if you need money, I give money out of my pocket. Like, there's a lot of people who I know ain't gonna give me the money back and ask me for money all the time. Got you, right? But it don't mean that we gonna hang out. Oh man, cool, thanks. Come on, this and that. No, man, there's stuff about your lifestyle that it's not conducive to mine. Like, if you want to learn about some things, or if you want to even meet, like, I'll bring you. If you want to hang out, let's hang out. And like, I got people who used to hang out with that still ain't trying to come outside of these cities. Like, some people in the Chi, they ain't never left the Chi. Some people in DC, they ain't never left DC. Some people in Baltimore, they ain't never left Baltimore, right? Some people from the islands, even if we want to take it out of those places, some people from the islands of Hawaii and stuff, they ain't never left the islands. They got the mindset of everything's right there. They think that, cats in Baltimore go to DC, they think they on vacation. Like, they like, yo, you going to DC, bruh. It's like, I used to go back and forth from there, just because every day. Just to look at property and stuff every day, right? But for them, that's a whole, like, so it's not me trying to, like, be better than anybody else, but it's being real. Like, my family, my children, like, my son can't be around certain things that you think it's okay for your son to be around. Like, your son seeing you fight people in the street every day, and you think that's all right. Like, I can't have my son be around that. I love your son, and I wish your son and my son could be together, but we can't be together. There's some things culturally that are happening. Like, you're trying to take on a culture that's not ours. And at some point, I got to put my foot in the ground and be like, yo, for the sake of my son, I got to separate. Right? Now, somebody would tell me that I'm the reverse racist. That's what racism teaches, is that if I say, yo, you killing my people, yo, like, you're telling me that my IQ is based off of your culture. It's intelligence quotient, right? So you have to tell me that I know enough about your culture. You don't have an IQ test based off of where I come from and where my people come from. You say that my intelligence has to be based on yours. Like, that's dangerous to me, right? It's dangerous to me that when I go to school, like, it's dangerous to me that I'm talking about something and someone come on here on the live today and do something that people always do. Hey, I got mixed race children, and you're talking about separation, and I can't deal with that, and you're a bad person. It's like, you don't know that my family is that. My whole family is that. I'm not, right? But because I would dare say one thing that you disagree with, you're going to try and label me a racist. Like, that you're dangerous. I can't be around you. Right? Like, I can't, there's a reason why. There's a reason why I'm in a place to where I'm dealing with electricity issues, because we choose to be in a place to where we a little further out than everybody else is, because I don't want to deal with this stuff. I don't want to deal with certain things, right? I don't want my son to wake up and have to immediately look out at signs that this is what happens. And some of this, like, we live, one of the places that we have is in the city, right? And when you wake up and you drive down the street, you're going to see all this stuff on the street corner that's going to be dealing with nothing but abortion. I'm not saying it's, like, I don't agree with abortion, but I'm not here to tell you that you can't choose to get an abortion. You deal with the consequences that come, right? However, at the end of the day, to have a whole street where there's nothing but abortion, like, what in the world is that, right? Like, I don't want him to be affected by it. I had to find a way to separate him from that. I didn't want him to be raised in a school system that taught me, my sister, my brother, his brothers and sisters and others, taught them that, hey, white on top, black on the bottom. Taught them that if, didn't teach us that chemistry comes from chemistry. Didn't teach it, right? Taught us chemistry, but said, forget about melanin. Well, how do you study chemet, which chemi is black, and they dealt in melanin, and they dealt with the pineal gland? How do you not teach any of that stuff in chemistry? Right? Like, I had to separate from that. It's not because just because people are white. There's a culture that comes with this, right? It's like we talked about. You can't talk about integration and not talk about how we got there. You can't talk about the fact that everything in integration had to deal with shedding the blood for us to force our way into something that people didn't want us to be in the first place. People didn't want us to sit at the lunch counter, so people had to march and die to sit at the lunch counter. People didn't want you to vote, so you had to march and die to be able to have just the right to vote. And even when you got that right, people still to this day are messing with you guys to still vote, right? People had to march and die for your ability to be able to sit on the toilet next to somebody else. Because the stuff coming out your body, the waste that everybody says all of us are the same, but nobody wants to talk about that. But while we were fighting and dying for it, and there were some white people fighting and dying for it too. But while we were fighting and dying for it, guess what was happening simultaneously? Nobody was fighting and dying to be able to just have that right on the other side. And there's cognitive dissonance going on societally there, where two different people are existing. There's cognitive dissonance that goes on to where people don't even want to talk about the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. was shot, went to the hospital, was killed there at the hospital, when people basically spat on him and said he could come back and he could be a threat. The CIA and the FBI were in on it. His family sued and won against the state. They couldn't sue the federal government, but they won against the state. And yet cognitive dissonance has you guys still talking about get over whatever. Like, you guys aren't even willing to admit that the man was not only shot in the head, but when they didn't complete the shot, they blamed the wrong dude for it on purpose to get you guys thinking it was about this guy. And then they basically killed him in his hospital bed. And it's known. They lost the case. And racism says, if I bring up racism, though, that I'm wrong, even though Martin Luther King Jr. talked about racism, but they'll tell me be more like MLK. And I'm like, MLK talked about racism. MLK was you were fine with MLK when he turned the march on Washington into a peaceful thing, because the march on Washington was supposed to be revolution. It was actually going to be a grassroots movement to where people were going to come out and lay down on what you now call Reagan Airport and everything. And then they got Martin Luther King Jr. They hired him and 6 other guys, the Big Six. Look up the Big Six back then. And they said, hey, your people are going to come in here. We're going to come against them. They're going to kill them. So you better make sure you get them under control. And at first he was like, we can't even really control them because we didn't start it. So JFK even, that's how JFK, that famous picture with JFK and Martin Luther King Jr. shaking hands, JFK gets involved to be able to say, hey, we'll give you whatever's necessary and we'll pay you guys, hundreds of thousands. They were losing money. So they were like, we'll pay you guys money that, now equates to millions. They were like, we'll make sure you guys are take care of this for us. Now, when Martin Luther King Jr. goes through this thinking that he's doing the righteous thing, even following Mahatma Gandhi is a racist. Mahatma Gandhi didn't like black people. Mahatma Gandhi, read what he was talking about in South Africa. In South Africa, he was writing articles speaking on how much he detested black people and how black people should die and stuff. It was only when the English started fighting for him and the English started saying, well, it's going to be hard for us to be able to say that we support you, right? And we're going to go ahead and try and fight for your independence, and you sitting here still talking about these black people. It was white people having to come to Mahatma Gandhi and say that, where he was like, all right, I'll back off my stuff. But, while he was, by the way, raping little girls, while he let his wife die off. I know some of y'all saw the movie, so y'all think the movie is what actually happened. He let his wife die off, and then because they said they didn't believe in modern medicine, then when he was sick, he took the modern medicine. And this is the dude that MLK was following. He thought he knew who Mahatma Gandhi was. He didn't know who Gandhi was. A lot of you don't know who Gandhi was, right? But people will look at him and say, that's the pillar, that's the person we need to look at, Gandhi and this and that. Even only in racism could a person who hates black people be the person that we look at as the martyr. And black people themselves look up to Gandhi. That's the person, Gandhi. That's why in my hometown, right, over in Ghana, when they tried to put up a statue of Gandhi in the college, and some people were ignorant of it, the students came and said no, and they tore that thing down. You think they only tear down? You see, a lot of people only think about the Confederate statues that get torn down. No, they tear down statues of Gandhi, because Gandhi hated black people. I'm glad you're back to Shaquita. Is it Shaquita? Forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, right? Yeah, we had to start a whole new page. That's why you couldn't find us for a while. But that's the reality. That's the reality. That's what we're dealing with. You said I need to patent a live lock so I don't accidentally keep swiping on. Oh, man, that'd be a great idea. They probably wouldn't credit you for it, though. I have a dream speech. How much land are you thinking? Like we said, we're looking for at least 50 acres. And we have people donating now, so we're on our way to it. Steven says, do you believe black people should just leave America? Why or why not? My wife and I talk about this all the time. We don't believe that we should just leave America, number one, because we're the real Americans. The real American definition of American, look up Black's Law Dictionary. The original American is a copper-colored person indigenous to America or to Turtle Island or to North America or to North and South America, really. So we being the real Americans, this is ours, number one. Number two, if black people were to leave America, are you going to get all black people to leave at the same time? Are you going to be able to afford it? Do you have to land together? Or are we just all going somewhere and saying anywhere is better than here? Let's just start in poverty. Number three, we don't need to do that. We can just come together and live together because we make up black Americans just by themselves. So people call themselves African Americans, people of African descent, Moors, black natives, whatever it is you want to call us. Black Americans, and that's not even including people that don't want to consider themselves black. So there's some people that won't put black. Like myself, like I'm black, but on paper I'm a non-citizen national. There might be some people that just because of that don't put themselves as black, or whatever. But nevertheless, people who are considered to be black in America, when you put all our money together and resources together, just us, right? Just us, 13% of the United States of America, we're the number 8. We're number 8 in the world as far as wealth. So we make up number 8 as far as wealth, but we still live in poverty. That's a mindset issue, right? Self-reparations has to start first. So for those reasons, you don't need to leave. Now, do I believe we should make sure that we colonize? I don't find colonization a terrible thing. I find what people do when they colonize to be a terrible thing sometimes. But there are people who have colonized and helped people out and made sure that they had their own, and matter of fact left their stuff in place. They said give us a tribute, this and that, but kingdom spread. So I believe that we should colonize. I believe we should gentrify. The problem is not that you go to the gas station, right, way down somewhere down this direction is a gas station. The problem is not that it's people from another country that are coming in here telling you what to do. The problem is, why don't you make sure that you own that gas station? Why don't you support somebody in their gas station? Why don't you make sure that you instead of there being whatever's out here, Walmarts and all this stuff out here in your area, why not make sure that you have something that's black owned? Why not make sure that you support it so much that it grows to where the prices come down to Walmart prices? Like that's more so what it should be. But should we have some other stuff in other countries? Sure. So like we're going to be working on land in America first. However, the goal, like personally, even outside of just communal land, like my goal is, some of the next land, whether it's 3-4 projects down the road. One of the things that I got to make sure I have for myself and my family for generations is land in Africa. And I would love to have land in South America. I would love to have land in Canada. I would love to have land possibly even in Europe. I would love to have land in those places. You want to make sure that you spread your influence and you spread your people, and your people have places to go. One of the things that helped the Carthaginians for so long when they were fighting Rome is that they had so much land that when Rome came and forced them to where, like, because Hannibal was about to take over Rome, and he was right on the doorstep, but they had sent people over to Carthage and they were going to kill their women and children. So Hannibal left to come back to Rome, right? Come back to Carthage, but they were able to move the capital from there to Spain. They had that much land that they could go somewhere else and literally just move in land that they already had, So we have to be able to do things like that. So I don't think it's as simple as just everybody pick up, let's go. I don't even know if we're of a mindset, let alone of economics, or even know how to deal in economics correct, because we don't even have people that are willing to do, like, I'm trying to explain this. There's a lot going through my mind. I apologize. I'm hitting a lot. When I say a lot, I'm usually trying to figure out all this information in my head. I am very keenly aware that our people have gotten worse and don't believe it. They believe that because technology is here and other things have happened that we're better. The reality is that we used to be people that we despise now, or we make fun of the Mexicans, who are really us anyways, because we're Latino. Latino is just talking about black people that were enslaved in a different place, right? Then they're talking about Taino people. So I, by definition, am Latino, right? Nevertheless, we'll make fun of Mexicans or other people who come here, and all, like, this, it feels like 4 families living in a 2-bedroom apartment, people sleeping on the floor, people driving in cars, stuff like that. That used to be us. And that's how we started to do well. And we had whole blocks, right? Especially with segregation, we have whole blocks and everything that were just black owned, and people lived in black neighborhoods, and your family lived across from each other, right? And so one family would all be together, and then they would go across the street and buy a house, and then you have two houses, and then you'd be able to do that. And all these things we call keys and different things like that. That was stuff we did all the time. You put your money in a pot, and you make sure that you're faithful to it. You make sure that you look out for your family members or the families that are with you. You treat them like brothers and sisters. You grow up, you marry into each other, and all this stuff. Like that was how we grew up as a country. We then decided it was more important to make sure that we understood that the white man's ice tastes better, right? For those of you who heard that saying. And so we started making sure that we said, let's leave our community. Let's go here. Let's go there. People forget it wasn't until the 1980s where they finally introduced crack into all these cities that we still had over 50% of fathers in homes. I mean, I wouldn't say that's doing well, but it's way better than what we're doing now. Right. And when I say fathers in homes, I don't mean just knowing the child. I'm talking about husbands and wives, couples living together. We were doing all that stuff together. It wasn't until we started saying, hey, the goal is to make it out of the hood rather than make the hood better. The goal is to make sure we go to everybody else's school instead of our own. I was just thinking about this just in sports the other day, still in the 90s and early 2000s. I'd say, 90s maybe. Look at your sports stars, especially let's look at the NFL and HBCUs, right? And I'm not even somebody who's a huge fan of the HBCU because HBCUs still teach the same thing. Nevertheless, HBCUs is supposed to be something that means a lot to us, right? Well, excuse me, look at even up into the 90s. Like Shannon Sharp came from an HBCU. Go back further. Walter Payton came from an HBCU. I believe Warren Moon came from an HBCU. A lot of people Jerry Rice came from an HBCU. These were great players who went to historically black colleges and universities. Tell me the last great player that that came from an HBCU. That's why they're making such a big deal about this boy that just decided to go to the school that Deion Sanders is at. But understand, we're making it like, oh, this is it's amazing. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. No, that's not true. That used to be the thing. But everybody gave up the HBCU because we were told, stop chasing what's beneficial to your people and puts money in your pockets and go chase after something else. So now Alabama, right, which could care less about black people, holistically, let's just be honest, holistically, I got family and everything in Alabama. We're going to be over in Alabama sometime in the next few weeks, probably, right? Alabama, that's a great, that has this place as far as, a great college institution and all this stuff. They care less, but black people are what? Black people make up that whole football team. When Nick Saban is winning, that's a black football team. Yeah, there's some white people sprinkled in, but that's a black football team. Michigan State, yeah, everybody talking about all this stuff. Michigan State, that's a black football team. But is the coach going to be black? No. Right? Is the leadership over the coach going to be black? No. Or the people that are over the university black? No. It's PWI. But you're going to make sure that all the black players go there. What if black players went to HBCUs again? See, at one point we had to go to the HBCU because it was what we had to go to because nobody was willing to give us stuff. And so we were willing to make sure that we did for our own. And then if we played against them, we win championships against them, or we go to the NFL and play against them and prove that we were worthy in this and that. But people started saying, hey, you know what? Other institutions, PWIs, white institutions started saying, hey, you know what? Those are where the better players are. Let's go ahead and now let's start accepting them so they can make us money. That's what it was all about. You go look at the Negro Leagues. The Negro Leagues were making more money than Major Leagues. The Negro Leagues and Major League Baseball, that's where the All-Star comes from. You think it's, the National League versus the American League. It used to come, the All-Star game, the way you know it today, it came from the Negro Leagues used to play against Major Leagues. Remember, and they called it Major Leagues and Negro Leagues, right? But the Negro League players, they were better. So you'd have, just think about these three names by themselves. Josh Gibson, the greatest, people consider him to be the greatest player of all time. People don't even know what I'm talking about. But you have a Josh Gibson, which is Babe Ruth, which, by the way, people forget Babe Ruth passed as white. He wasn't even white. It was considered by many to not only be the best hitter of all time, but the best pitcher of all time. But nevertheless, you have Josh Gibson that would show up, Satchel Paige, and Jackie Robinson. That's just three names that come up in my memory right now. Just imagine that. On the Negro League side, three of the greatest players of all time. Satchel, they chose Jackie Robinson because they knew he would be good. He would be a good boy. That's why they allowed him to play. Josh Gibson was the best player. Satchel Paige is the greatest pitcher of all time, right? But they knew that Jackie Robinson was going to be able to come in, be called the N-word, have people literally trying to stab him with their spikes as he was sliding into the base, and do things like that. They knew he would be able to handle it because he was a military man. He had gone to the right schools. He had come to the white schools. He had done this. And so the reason they had him come over was because they weren't making as much money as what they were. And they needed these black players to come in. So Branch Rickey, who we just look at as somebody who's like, he just wanted to win a championship. No, his team was terrible. They needed money, or it wasn't terrible necessarily, but his team needed money. And so basically the league needs money. He says, hey, I'll be the person to test this out because I want to make some money off of this. And we all need to make some money off of this. Jackie Robinson, that's the person I'm going to pick. He checks off all the boxes as far as he's a good black. He's one of the good ones. And so we'll bring him in. We'll tell him, hey, this is about making sure that people can understand that your people are great and this and that or whatever. But at the end of the day, he just wanted to win and make money. They brought him in. Next thing you know, everybody says, hey, I want to prove that I'm good enough too. You were already good enough. You were beating them in the Major League versus Negro League game. You were already good enough. You were already making more money than them. But they needed money, so they integrate. And that's what happens every once in a while. People want to put terms on it. Like, I'm going to use the term segregation so that you comprehend what I mean. But the reality is that segregation, it's given many names, but it keeps happening over and over again. It's segregation. Things aren't work. Segregation, hey, we got our own. We need something that you got. We come in, integration. We go back to segregation, integration, back to segregation. That's the story of mankind. I'm only going to go back to the 1400s, but the reality is we can keep going back further and further and further. But that's the game, But think about the fact that the 1400s, up until the 1400s, it was segregation, and it was black people were in charge of Spain and places like that. Going back to the Carthaginians. Even some of the Roman emperors, we forget they weren't white, they were black, right? We have this weird concept that Rome has to mean white. But Rome, even Europa just means that which belonged to Rome. So if you were in an African country and it belonged to Rome, then you were Europa, you were European. That's what the word means. That's why they brought it back, because they wanted to have some claim to Rome, right? So you have a system that's in place in this system. So deal with the fact that you're dealing with Rome, right? You're dealing with Rome. I'm sorry, let me go back to 1400, excuse me. You're dealing with all this stuff coming up. And in Spain, it's still, the Moors were still there to 1491, right? And it was segregation. Integration comes in the form of, we're going to make slaves out of you. We're going to kick you out the country as far as your rulership. We're going to make slaves out of you. And the ones that are here, you just kind of got to do whatever it is. And they made a lot of money off that. They start doing the slavery, things like that. Then it goes back to segregation. It goes back to, you guys are cool over here. Hey, we'll make a treaty with you guys. Next thing you know, I'm sorry, you guys are cool, whatever. We'll make a treaty. We won't come past the Appalachian Mountains. People in America didn't like that. They wanted slavery, right? So then they say, well, we need integration, right? That's what the Declaration of Independence is about. But they use people like Benjamin Banneker to help build their stuff, right? They're using a lot of black slaves even to do stuff like the cotton gin. They're using free blacks and things. They're going to have Frederick Douglass speak on their behalf while still treating black people like crap. They're going to do a lot of different things talking about integration, this or that or whatever. Then you get Jim Crow stuff, segregation. And Jim Crow wasn't just in the South. Like Malcolm X taught us, as long as you're south of the Canadian border, you South, right? And so you're going to see Jim Crow start and all this stuff. But then you see black people doing well. Well, what happens, right? When they're doing well in segregation, they say, oh, let's do some integration, start doing business with us again. And then while doing that, we're going to kill you off in Rosewood. We're going to kill you off in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're going to kill you off in Chicago, Illinois. We're going to kill you off in New York City, right? Which goes back to Wall Street, which was nothing more than where they sold slaves. And then they started treating black people like crap again. They're going to keep doing these things over and over again. Right? But then, hey, let's integrate, let's come together, under this good white man, we can make things happen or whatever. But then segregation happens again. You get the 60s and stuff like that, the 70s, all that. Then we're going to integrate together. During the integration comes the crack epidemic and all that. See, we came together, but we don't need to be around these black people who are doing this stuff while we're flooding their streets with crack. Well, we got Ronald Reagan making jokes with Richard Nixon before he even becomes the president, talking about that black people are shoeless monkeys and stuff like that. We have this on recording. You can listen to the recording. You can Google it yourself and listen to Ronald Reagan on the phone laughing with, or Richard Nixon laughing at Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan saying we're going to do a war on drugs, which was really a war on hippies, because hippies were starting to get together and have babies with blacks. For the person who was on earlier talking about mixed race and all that, they killed off white hippies and they killed off black people, and they locked people up, and they started saying weed was the problem because they would come together and smoke weed when they were having these children that were dangerous to society because they were what you called mixed race, right? They started killing people and killing reputations, and then started flooding the streets with crack, and then had Bill Clinton come together. This is supposed to be during integration. During integration, they start segregating even more. Now they're super predators. Right? Super predators and this and that predatory behavior. But then we need to make sure we come back together. George Bush, the second George Bush, comes in and he says, wait a minute, no child left behind. And all he does is leave black babies behind. Right? But then Obama's coming together. He's going to bring us all together. But he says, oh, wait a minute. I'm not the black president. I'm not the white president. I'm the president. But then doesn't do anything for his own black people. And then we get to Trump, who takes the segregation and runs with it. And then all of a sudden, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are going to come together. They're going to integrate. I mean, Kamala just finished telling you that Joe Biden's a liar and that he's a racist and he doesn't care about black people. But now she's going to come together with him to make change. And Joe Biden's been telling you about saying nothing but racist stuff and taking money out of your pocket since he was, the 70s, 60s, 70s, whatever. And his person that he was under, who he calls the person who is his mentor, who he gave a speech at his funeral and died and was crying, at the funeral, he made it a point to tell you that this racist white man was his mentor. It gets to a certain point where you got to comprehend that all this stuff is going on. It's been going on. Booker T. Washington, Denzel Washington, the same person. Shabbos is another thing recently learned. NYC had the most lynching than other states. Oh yeah, NYC, that's people don't want to talk about Boston, Massachusetts. I mean, Massachusetts, that's where they had to kill off the Massachusetts people. That's why it's named Massachusetts. The Massachusetts were people. Massachusetts is where people were coming in at first. That's where the first, I know people want to talk about Florida and Georgia and some other, but I'm telling you, Massachusetts, that's where they were bringing the slaves first. We just talked about that yesterday with the separatists. Paul Robeson. Yeah, Paul Robeson. What was Paul Robeson? They were trying to call him not a communist, because they didn't use communist yet. Communist wasn't a bad word yet. What were they telling he was? Not a Marxist, but something along those lines. You know how they bring words back to try and tell people how terrible they are. Shabbos says, yes, back to basics. Did someone boot that bozo? Ironic. They're saying Babe Ruth is mixed. Well, I mean, Babe Ruth was always mixed. His family came out a long time ago when they were talking about all these black players that might have a chance to break his record. And they were telling you, well, shoot, I mean, the first black person to do all this stuff was Babe Ruth. Yeah, the system does make people rich off the back. Or Bama does. Yeah. A narcissist person is a recipe for a dangerous and toxic relationship. Yep, most definitely. Yep, Robeson, a communist. It was a communist? Okay. And Rutgers wouldn't let him play. I didn't know about that part. I had to read up on that. I didn't know about that part. So can you suggest a resource where you can start learning the unedited version of his story? Well, you got to look for a story and not his story. But first of all, once again, it comes to culture. I learn books about culture. What's interesting enough? One of the reasons why I look at stuff a little differently than the average person does, I didn't really like reading. So the first books that I read were fake me out comic books. Somebody, actually a white woman, who was going to some of our schools and was going to the university until recently. She's an older woman, and she wanted to unlearn some of the things that she learned. And she'd been around with us for years. She's just been busy as of recently. I haven't talked to her in a while. I need to check up on her, see how she's doing, how her and her husband are doing. She's in the Florida area. So when we come down that way, maybe I'll try to check them out. I never visited them in person, but she bought me because she heard me talking about them. There's these stack of comic books. They're like yellow. I forget what they're called. We have them now because of her. She bought them for me just because she heard me talking about them, and she went looking for them. She found them at like a Goodwill or something like that, and I'm very appreciative to her. It's very nostalgic for me. My father bought a bunch of comic books, and I grew up thinking Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Clarence Thomas, all these different people. I thought they were superheroes. I thought all these people that were real people, I thought they were just comic book characters. And I'd go to school at like 5 and 6, and I'd hear kind of sort of the mention, and I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. They're talking about comic book people? Like, that was where my mind was. I didn't really know that these were real people until I got to be a couple years older, and then in fact realized, oh, like, I know who these people are. And I also used to get books. I would read stuff, but I wanted to see pictures. I'm a very visual person, so I like to read, but I wouldn't say I like to read, but I know the importance of reading, so I force myself to read. However, I like to see pictures too. So I would go and I would get books, and they were always very cultural. So if I got a book on ancient Ghana, not modern day Ghana, because that's two different places, but if I got a book on ancient Ghana, I wanted to get a book where they showed me what people were dressed like, and then they would have some words, and then they'd show me what the land looked like, and then they have some words and things like that. So it's always cultural. Like, you're going to find things through culture. Find books that show you what people live like, right? And then get these books, but I talk about these books often. If you're talking about stuff specific to what we're talking about, I mean today, same books, I guess, from yesterday that people ask me about. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, anything by him. Anything by Dr. Amos Wilson. Anything by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Anything by, I didn't even mention, I'm forgetting his name now. Not Dr. Ben, even though you should get some stuff by Dr. Ben, but Dr. John Henry Clark. Look at his stuff. Look up anything, written by Malcolm X, anything written by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., or Minister Malcolm X, excuse me. Look up anything written by Dr. Joy DeGruy, especially PTSS, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. Those are the books that I always tell people start there. Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., he speaks a lot on code, and he's not even trying to come up with solutions. So somebody who's listening to him, understand he's going to tell you straight up. Like, if you listen to his speeches, he's going to tell you straight up, I'm not even dealing in solutions. He says, if somebody comes along and they have some solutions and some things that sound like we should be able to follow, then I'm willing to put myself behind it. But he said, I haven't really found somebody that's broken out of this system. And he says, I know I haven't broken out the system. I don't really have a solution. He said, I'm just introducing problems that we're going to need to fix. So those are things that you have to, be honest about and be real about. So he was a rear musician, right? Who am I talking about? I can't remember what I was talking about, Coleman. I'm sorry. I'd be trying to catch up. A rear musician. I can't remember what I was talking about. Gibson was a better hitter than Ruth. Yeah. Josh Gibson, a lot of people consider him to be the greatest of all time, if you know about just outside of modern or outside of Major League Baseball. You said history is great, but I'm trying to hear about the future. Well, okay. So when you talk about the future, what you want to know about the future without making sure you understand the past, because the future is the same thing as the past. Make sure that you invest. We should have been teaching investing in the past. When we didn't teach investing and we started just working 9 to 5s, we messed up in our present. Well, guess what? You have a chance to invest in things in the future. It's the same game, right? So what are you doing as far as your investment game? What are you doing as far as cryptocurrency? Do you comprehend what the meta is going to be? Like, I'm going to invest in meta. I'm not going to use meta, but I'm going to invest in it, right? Like, I learned my lessons from the past. When I knew stuff was going to be what it was going to be, it was going to be the future, and I kept thinking I'm going to do it, and I didn't let people do it. Now, all of a sudden, next thing I know, I wasn't able to reach for what was sufficient for my family, and we could have been millionaires. Like, we could have legit. Now, I'm not talking about maybe kind of sort of. We would have been like tens of millions of dollars easy had we just started investing in cryptocurrency when we knew when we knew, my wife and I, we were ready, and we didn't do it because everybody was saying it was crazy. Had we just invested in it, we could have cashed out, been straight, I already purchased the land for everybody and been on, we would have been in another place, right? Thank you. Dr. Cloud Anderson, I didn't talk about him. Yes, definitely. Powernomics is the one I'm most familiar with. I've read a little bit of Black Labor, White Wealth, but definitely, So somebody else said that they should have invested too. Yeah. Oh, medical apartheid, that's a whole nother thing. You said you just don't know where to start. I mean, really, it's I say like this, just like anything in life in general, just start. Just like anything in life in general, just start. A lot of people are saying, I don't know when to start, where to start, what to do. Like, just start. I promise you, like, just get a start. You get a start, you'll discover that it's not that hard to continue. Just start. Start on something. Start with something. People will say all the time, like I say, start at the beginning. That's why I always talk about culture, because you guys start at the beginning. But somebody will say to me, where should I start in the Bible? I'll say, well, Barashit or Genesis. Hey, start at the beginning. Nevertheless, like if you don't, start somewhere. Some people say start at John, start at Rivulet, start somewhere. Just make sure you have culture and make sure you have somebody who can explain it with you, right? It's good to invest in somebody who will start, whether it's time, whether it's talent, whether it's finances, whether it's donations, whatever, but invest in somebody who can invest in you. So find places where they find places and people that are like-minded and trying to go to the same place that you are, but just start. Don't be like a lot of us who kept saying, man, I wish I knew where to start. Just start. The reason Mama said, yeah, grow some food. Exactly. Grow food, get chickens, learn how to, chickens are something we don't have yet, but I want chickens, just because if you get 3 chickens, basically that's a dozen eggs, in a week. Just little things like that. But definitely grow food. We're into that all day, every day. Jess Banks says, and don't rely on just one source, right? Don't put all your chickens in one basket, all your chickens, all your eggs. I guess it's the same thing, right? But don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. 7 streams of income is what makes a millionaire. 7 streams of income, you become a millionaire. That's the goal. Find 7 different ways that income can come in. Passive income is also the goal, right? If you get to a place where it's passive income, right, then you only have to worry about anything else, because passive income also is not taxable. So when people who still are saying, well, I don't want to do sovereign, or I don't think you're making sense, or I don't think that I can just not pay taxes. Okay, like you're still in that mind, fine. Just make sure you get passive income so you don't have to worry about being taxed for it. Like, these are legal things, that have to happen. Learning law, as we're talking about it, that's one of the biggest things. Racism causes people to think that that you're dealing in just laws, right? Like, learn law so you can comprehend how to deal with racism too. You're talking about the future. A lot of people don't know in the future how to make sure that they get out of a system that says that you're part of a corporation. A lot of people will come on here, man, I just want to know about the future. Do you know that there's a United States corporation that's going to block you from having the future you're supposed to have? If you want a future, make sure that you deal in the United States of America. There are athletes who have made sure that they're sovereign so that they don't get taxed and they have a W-8BN. Did you know that? A lot of people don't know there are athletes that play sports that have a W-8BN. If you even know what I'm talking about, right? That's why we have sovereignty classes. Those are things that can help. You said Meta and NIP, NFT crypto are mind-boggling how they're changing financial systems. Yeah, and that's what the people who created Bitcoin said was going to happen. And that's what, people like Ethereum are saying is going to happen. And all Meta is doing is looking at what Ethereum's doing and trying to say, okay, we're going to do it throughout the virtual universe. But you got to be careful with it, right? That's why I say invest in it, but maybe not invest. Like, I don't know if I'm going to, and this is the thing, I'm praying about this because I know we're still going to keep our social media voice. However, when it gets to this, people got to comprehend this is wickedness. They're going to be using stuff like, for example, they're going to inject people with things, or they're going to, they're going to, you're going to have to at some point get something done to your body to enjoy some of this stuff fully, right? Like, you'll have the glasses, for example, it's going to start with these glasses. I think they said something like the glasses are going to be $200 and something or close to $300, and you're going to put on the glasses. And when you put on the glasses, you got to comprehend that they're saying you're going to see everything as if you're in there. You might have to buy some gloves and stuff so that it'll feel like you can feel what's in there, and you can have a virtual experience. They say that there's certain people who are looking at, now this is years down the road, supposedly, but there are people who have like downloaded their families and people's memories and different things on the chips. And so there are scientists who've done it with their fathers who are trying to figure out how to let their fathers show up in the metaverse. and they're going to try and figure out, can we download somebody's brain to where somebody can live forever, so to speak. But really, you have ownership over the person. This person will be a slave in the metaverse. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on with this that people don't comprehend, where it's the same system of oppression, right? So that's why I say, like, I might put some money into this stuff, but I don't know how much I can allow myself to go into it. So I might have to be somebody that is not popular, which I'm not right now. Anyways, even though we reach a whole bunch more people than what it shows up as, nevertheless, so I'm not that popular, or I might not be that popular in the metaverse because I'm probably not going to plug in, so to speak. But it's going to be some matrix type stuff. Like, it might not be straight up in your neck, but there's going to be some stuff down the road to where if you want a better experience, don't forget, in places in Europe, they already have it to where when you go through places, you just scan your hand, you got a chip inside already, right? So when people say, oh, that's ridiculous, nobody could inject anything in you, blah, blah, like, they already do this. Now, you're supposed to agree to it, which is why you got to study what you're being injected with or whatever. But there are places where people have agreed, knowing full well, oh yeah, you're going to put a transmitter or a device in me or something, whatever in me, to ensure that I can move. It's something that can be scanned. This is what's going to be happening with the metaverse. So when you hear meta, the first few years or whatever is going to be exciting. And I'm not against virtual reality. Just comprehend, like, this stuff has to read you. It has to read your brain patterns. It has to read what your eyes do. It has to read what your ears do. It has to read what your hands do. It has to read eventually what your feet do. There's already technology where people are walking on whatever you call those things. It's like a treadmill, but your feet force it to go in the direction that you wanted to go in or whatever. And so, like, you can go in any direction, but you're just standing still, and these people are playing games and like this all together. It's the same technology, but now it's going to say we want to download the same way. Like think about it now. You go on Facebook, you go on TikTok, you go on YouTube, wherever, and you see these commercials, and the commercials are always like, or you get an email even, right? And you're like, how is it that I'm getting all this marriage stuff? I was just talking to somebody about marriage the other day, and now I'm gonna say, I'm getting all this marriage stuff. Well, because everything they have it designed, like, okay, we need to know every last detail about them. They get stuff from your job sometimes, people don't know, and they'll pay to see if they can get your information. Like, your job is in on it too. Sometimes, like, they're getting the information from everywhere. So here you are going through all this stuff or whatever, and now you're gonna have a metaverse where stuff is literally going to be plugged in. All right, Unity Daily, thanks for being on, right? So all these people are plugged in, right? Literally, they're going to be plugged in. And my hair has been okay. And offense taken. When people do that, no offense. No offense, but, offense. That's basically what people are doing. But I appreciate that. If that's all that you got out of everything that was being said, thank you. Let's see. Yeah, learn the law, most definitely. Winter sovereignty classes, so the next classes coming up are going to be at the end of January. And you can go to Kofi-Ofori.com. That's Kofi-Ofori.com. Yeah, Just Banks, yeah, they already started with that. Watch Johnny Mnemonic. I've heard of it. I haven't watched it. I don't really watch as much stuff anymore. At least if it's not something I'm studying. Not at all interested in partaking in that, yeah. They tell us things in movies to avoid bad karma from their God. I can see that. Oh, very strange. 50 years from now, AI will be reality. I mean, it already is reality, really. Look up robots. Look up humanoid robots. You can already see them speaking and doing things already. So, hey, man, that's right. Just on you start, the path is going to open up. Most everything is down now, so the time is now. Yeah, and that's actually, too, when stuff goes down, when you have what they call, you got to understand when they say, like, we're having the crisis, monetary crisis, financial crisis, wealth crisis, job crisis. That's when things are at their best. You establish yourself then, because then when everybody starts getting more and you already have, whatever base, whether it's you've advertised to certain people doing whatever for whatever business or social media stuff or whatever, you grow when everybody else grows because you establish yourself when things were down. So now when people have stuff to be able to do, they'll fund you. They'll buy your product. They'll get your books, etc. They'll buy your music. Isn't one of the ALS racist? or admitted to be so. I don't know what ALS is. I don't know what that stands for. Maybe I know what it is, but I don't know what it stands for. Let me look it up. I don't even know what ALS is. Yeah, I thought you were talking about the disease. I don't even know. Are you talking about ALS, the organization? I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. You said what's like a cult? I don't understand. Helio, what's like a cult? I think she said first AI. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good. I had to look that up too. I'm not sure. I don't pay enough attention to it to be a master of it or a teacher about it, So, or even to be a historian concerning it. But yeah, so that's the reason why, getting back to it, we talk about racism. Why we believe it's important to talk about racism is because we believe it's important because it's a system, right? And it goes hand in hand with other systems. It's like if you learn about grace and you learn about mercy, you can learn how they go together, right? If you learn about faith and you can learn about works and you can learn about how they go together. It's a system. At the end of the day, racism is a system. It's a system in which we are supposed to take two different things. We're supposed to take, it's a system where you can so people can conflate and mess up and have cognitive dissonance because they start trying to put things together and say that these two things are the same. They might go hand in hand, but they're not the same. I have a right hand and a left hand, but they're not the same, right? I'm right-handed, I'm left-handed, whatever. They're not the same, right? So somebody will say, well, racism is classism. There's no such thing as racism. It's classism. Classism is a system based on class. So yes, you could say that when people are into a system called racism, there is classism. But racism is a system based on for competition, and it's become about white on top and black on the bottom. However, is there classism in that? Of course. But it doesn't mean that when somebody's talking about classism, this is why people will say there's no such thing as a racism, and then people start going to the opposite end. So you have, there's a guy who's been on TikTok making this whole point of saying, yo, I'm from, and you talk, he's somebody you can tell is a fake tough guy. Yo, I'm from Chicago, I'm from the place. He sound like that. He sound wild. And it's like, you don't even sound like somebody from the Chi, right? Like people from the Chi don't talk like this, you know what I'm saying? Like you sound like a country dude. Like some people from Chicago are straight up country. Like DC, for example, with people from DC, we call it deep country because everybody from down south, if you black there, right? It used to be Chocolate City. Now it ain't quite Chocolate City, but everybody was from down south because we all were descendants of slaves, right? Or coming from the Carolinas or whatever. A lot of people in Illinois, you got people from there, from Mississippi, and a little bit of Alabama and some places like that, right? Remember during Jim Crow and all that stuff, people were trying to get out of there because of what people were doing downtown. But dude sound like a white dude trying to sound like he country or whatever, and talking about, I'm from Chicago and I was the minority and I was on food stamps and I'm dealing with stuff. And white people now, we're the people that deal with the most oppression. Right, trying to reverse this stuff. So you're using black culture and what stuff that black people to go through, and then trying to say, hey, since I went through a little bit of it, right, that you went through classism. And if you're trying to say that there was racism because you were the minority, well, no, it wasn't racism because you were a minority. You speak like us. You talk like us. Obviously, you were accepted by us, right? Now, if you want to say that you were the token white guy, I could kind of roll with that, I guess. But obviously, you didn't believe that it was wrong because now you just reversing it. You called me the reverse racist, but you reversed it. You know what I'm saying? Where now you're doing it and you're not using the culture correctly. There's videos of him walking around with guns and stuff like that, like with guns in the background where they sell guns or whatever, and basically trying to threaten people to talk to him or whatever. So apparently, like you're not okay with us all being one. Right, so but he's dealing with the stuff. He reverses the thing, but he went through what he dealt with was classism. He dealt with which by the way everybody deals with, and this is why people have to comprehend it. Where when I talk about black, I'm not just talking about black only because or just because I wanted to be black people only. I need you to comprehend what they did to one of us, they'll do to all of us. What they do to one of us, they'll do to all of us. once again, what they'll do to one of us, they'll do to what? All of us, right? And that's the point. That's the point. Like, people don't comprehend it. They don't get that, right? Like, why do I stick up for the black woman? Not just because she's my mother, she's my sister, she's my aunt, she's my daughter. I stick up for it because if they'll do something to her, they'll do it to me. Why do I stick up for humanity? Because if they do it to me, they'll do it to you. And if they do it to you, they'll do it to me. So the stronger we are, why do I make sure that the people I live with, my community that I live next door to, why do I make sure they're fine? Because if somebody messes with my brother next door, they'll mess with me. You've been saying this since you were 16. Yeah, it's a true saying. Right? Oh yeah, there's tons of white-only places, white-only parks, white-only pools, a lot of stuff like that still exists today. There's a place in Georgia. I forget the guy's name. It's always a funny name to me, so I can't I don't know why I'm forgetting it. But we talked about him a little bit in the Sovereignty 1 class. And there's a guy who tried to give white-only property to the state of Georgia, but said you can only keep it if you make sure it stays white-only. And because you can't do that with public property, because it belongs to the state, and the state can't do that, they had to give it right back to the family. They didn't say, we'll just make it open to everybody. They said, we'll give it back to the family and let it stay private so that it can, remain a white-only park. Still exists to this day. So, but that's private property. And by the way, if that's what somebody wants to do with their property, I'm not trying to force. See, this is part of the fight, like people have with classism or racism or schisms or feminism or whatever isms you're dealing with. People have this weird fight where it's like you trying to force you. But look, if somebody wants to fight that bad to have that property be white only, let it be white only, because they don't like you anyways. This goes with some of the stuff we're talking about. Why do we teach on racism? We taught on racism for the same reason we taught on part 5, was it? That this is not for everybody. Not everybody's going to agree with what we're saying. Not everybody's going to agree with what we're saying because not everybody likes you. Thank you, Cole. I see you. Right? Not everybody likes you. And since not everybody likes you, why would I think that everybody's going to agree with you? Speaking of that whites only library, by the way, when it comes to, you hear me saying, you can see I'm searching for something. What is the name of that place in North Carolina? They did the same thing they did to Tulsa and stuff in Wilmington in 1898. If you look up Wilmington, North Carolina, if you were to try and go to libraries in North Carolina and look up Wilmington, North Carolina, not just in North Carolina, but in the South, but specifically in North Carolina, if you went to any library like through the 90s, maybe early 2000s, and you tried to look up Wilmington, North Carolina, you could not look it up. Like, if you tried to find a book that said Wilmington, North Carolina, you could not get the book. Even if they had it, they would say that you couldn't get it. You know why? Because in 1898, in Wilmington, North Carolina, there were a bunch of people there. They were doing their own thing. There were black people that were being voted in. They had black people that were supposed to become congressmen and senators and all that. They had a black mayor, and white people didn't like it. And they started saying bad stuff about it. And they started trying to say these black people are dangerous because they might take our women. And the guy who had the newspaper printing press, they had their own newspaper. And newspapers are important because newspapers were like phones. Newspapers is what passes the information from one place to another. If somebody passed away, what's going on in society, what's happening for fun, are there jobs that are open? So they had this newspaper place, and the guy there put in the article, since white people kept putting these wild stuff out about black people trying to take white women, he said, well, maybe you should do something that causes your white women to think that we are bad because they seem to find us very attractive and want to deal with our money. And the white people didn't like that. So what happened? They came and they eradicated the whole place. They told them straight up. They told them they were coming for them, and they were doing so. Now, this is one of the things that people don't want to talk about because it shows you how the voting stuff and everything has always been fallible. They had a black mayor who was going to get voted in again. It also was around the time when these were votes. People had been voted into the Senate, into the House, into the Senate in the state, all that stuff. In the Senate in their city, the councilmen, all that stuff. And it was going to be black people voted in yet again. And white people told them, we're coming. We're going to burn everything to the ground. They sent word. They sent word out to the guy who was who wrote the newspaper. They said, we're going to kill you when we get there. I forget what day this is, but it's whenever the vote usually happens, somewhere around December-ish, somewhere in there. I'm saying December 6th, but I feel like December 6th, that's more Pearl Harbor stuff. Somewhere around there, December 4th, December 8th, somewhere in that area. Might even been December 10th. I don't know, somewhere in there. That's usually around the time they had the vote. So these people got voted in. And when these people got voted in, white people showed up and basically killed off or forced out or had everybody run away who were voted in officials. They killed off hundreds of people. Then other people had to hide in cemeteries and in the woods for weeks, waiting for a time to be able to escape. The place where the newspaper was, the newspaper guy, he knew they were coming for him, so he had already ran and left. They burned down the newspaper press. Until this day, if you go into Wilmington, North Carolina, until this day, you will find that there's a big, huge hole, right? So to speak, not a hole, but there's a gap. So you got all these buildings around, but there's this gap they keep there, right? They never put anything else in its place. There's just this big gap that they put there, or that you see. That's the gap where the newspaper place used to be. The newspaper printing press used to be there. And they left it there for all those years to be a reminder to people that if you ever get out of pocket with us, that's what's going to happen to you again. But people say we shouldn't bring this up. Now you got people, white people and black people, who grew up in this area with this uneasy tension. Some white people probably not even knowing that happened, or not even caring or believing it should have happened. People who try to look up anything about their own city can't even look up stuff in their own city because it's not legal to do so, because you'd have to learn the truth. Right? Now, why is it that we say that that's okay? Why is it that we don't think that there's any sin in that? Why is it that we think it's okay to keep up a sin, keep up a lie, keep up a fairy tale, which is that everybody's just integrated and everybody's gotten together? No, like, there's a reason why there's an uneasy tension. There's a reason why there's an uneasy tension. Right? Oh yeah, they'll say members only. Yeah, we there was a pool. I want to say it's in Hyattsville, Maryland. We tried to go, or we were taking our son to a park, and we were like, "Oh, that's a nice pool." And we realized that, hey, they got like all types of stuff that's weird. Like, you can't even get close to the pool. And then came to find out, they're like, "Oh yeah, you got to be a member of this and that." That we paid attention, and basically, we were there in the area for a few days, and except for once or twice, I think there was one black person, so that they get to go into the place everybody else can't get into, and they probably weren't like that much, in all honesty. But yeah, or white-owned can mean country club, but a country club's private. So if it's a country club, they have the legal right to let in whoever they want. But you got the right to do the same thing. But when you do the same thing, what do they say? They say you're a racist. But country club. That's why Tiger Woods wasn't liked by certain people in the community. He became an anomaly, and now people miss him. Right? It's interesting. When he was a guy that was supposed to be squeaky clean, doing what he was supposed to do, and at one point he was squeaky clean, and he was on the up and up and straight and narrow, and he was just trying to be a good white boy in a black man's body, or if you want to say a black Chinese man's body, whatever, or black Asian. I'm sorry, is he Chinese? I can't remember. Please forgive me. I feel like I'm off on that. But he was basically a good white man in a colored person's body. That's what he tried to be, and nobody accepted him. Interestingly enough, it's once he got caught cheating on his wife and lost in his endorsements and things of that nature, and he made his comeback, then all of a sudden he became loved. Isn't that wild? See what a system like that does? When you were trying to just be good, nobody cared. But all of a sudden, when it was like, hey, you're taking away my ability to be able to watch Tiger. I don't like, Tiger makes me, he's the only reason I watch golf. Make sure you get Tiger back up there. Now Tiger's coming back to play with his son. Is he playing this weekend? I don't know. But Tiger's coming back to play golf with his son, and now everybody in the world, oh my gosh, he's coming back. But when he said he didn't want nothing to do with us, he was he should have been, like, he was allowed in the country club, I guess, because he said, hey, don't call me black, I'm Coblasian, whatever it was. Had to come up with a new term so that he could say, hey, you guys know I don't really fit in with you, but I fit in. I'm not one of those guys. That's a weird thing within itself. Nevertheless, though, what'd you say? If they came in second place? Oh, I didn't even know they played and came in second place. Well, I guess that's a nice story. Because he's playing with his son. Let's say, wow, that's crazy. I never knew that about Tiger. Yeah, he had to basically admit, like, oh yeah, I'm not one of them. And it's, and it's interesting because his father had to basically get that in his mind, and his mother. They had to put that in his mind. His father was the one that taught him how to play golf and everything, but his father had to be the one to say, hey, you know what? Like, you're going to make it, and you can't, don't worry about it, and don't worry about it. They shouldn't see color and blah, blah, this and that or whatever. I mean, that man, he rich and everything, but that man is messed up. That man is on drugs, right? You can call it whatever you want, painkillers, whatever. That man's on drugs. That man is divorced. That man was cheating on his wife. Made sure he found a white wife. By the way, found because he wanted to make sure he was still cheating and stuff on the side, so he found somebody he thought wouldn't really work. Wouldn't really have to worry about. So found the babysitter or whatever, or not a babysitter, whatever she was. So they played very well. He has that I'm not black, I'm just OJ. Pause. Okay, yeah. That's what O.J. Simpson said. Everybody loved O.J. too, until he killed the white girl. Everybody knew he was beating the white girl. His family knew he was beating the white girl. His family knew that, like, he was like hurting people that the white girl dated while beating her. They didn't care. But, O.J. said it best himself. He said, I'm not black, I'm O.J. And remember, I don't know how many people have seen some of the stuff that they have brought out on the, not the movies, but the, y'all know what I'm talking about. It's a film, but it's not a movie, whatever, about real life. I don't know. I must be tired. I'm having issues with connectivity of words on this rising. And, nevertheless, during it, one of his best friends is sitting up there and he's like, man, they're talking bad about us over here or whatever, and they say they're talking bad about us over here. They're saying all types of bad stuff about us. They're saying all bad stuff about people in our community, this, that, and the third. And but they're not. But there's but he said, oh, but then they said, but why is OJ sitting with those black people? Thank you, documentary. Why is OJ sitting with those black people? Why is OJ over there with this? Why is OJ doing this and that, whatever, and with those black people? He said, oh, that's good. They said, what do you mean that's good? He said, well, they don't see me as black. They don't see me as one of you. That's good. You're supposed to be his friends, supposedly, right? Obviously, they're not. This is why we talk about this. It separates you from self. It separates you from self. This is why there's no self-control. You can't have control over self because they take you away from self. When they take you away from self, all that's left is control. We've been saying that over and over again for quite a few days now. It's the reality, right? Because we have no knowledge of self, it's easy to control. Because people don't have knowledge of self, it's easy to control. If I tell you that all you have to do is feel like you're a woman to be a woman, then, hey, women, what are you sitting there talking about oppression? You don't go through oppression as women. You don't deal with any chauvinism. How dare you talk about you deal with chauvinism? Look at this woman over here. She made it. She's like you because she says she is you because she feels like she's you. That's a part of the conversation people don't want to have. Right? But how dare you come into my community and you tell me that the woman who had to breastfeed me, the woman who had to carry me for 9 months, the woman that had to be told that she wasn't as good as you because she was black, the woman that had to make sure that she had to become strong and independent because she was in this frozen state because she had to watch her man be pulled apart and had to watch other men be beat to death in front of her to the point of death, but not to death because he represented good economics. And this woman who is trying her best to hold on to queenhood without even being able to protect the her queendom, without being able to protect the little girl inside of herself. And then you come across and you say because you feel like you're her, you get to be put in the same place as her. No, we don't play that over here. That's not our culture. Now, does that mean that I'm saying you have to go to hell? No. Right? Does it mean that you have to agree with me? No. I'm saying when you come over here in this culture, she's protected. She's protected over here. And people don't want to hear that. People don't like it, but it's the reality. Like over here, like what kind of man am I if I don't protect my woman? You tell me that I'm homophobic that I am somebody who's afraid, then you even dare say stuff like, see the ad hominem that has come. Then it becomes, oh, you only talk bad about him because you want to. I'm not talking bad about anybody. I'm saying that my woman is my woman. In my culture, that's my woman, and she gets protected at all cost. And the funny thing is that there's a lot of LGBTQ plus that believe the same thing that I'm saying and say that we shouldn't be doing the same thing. More of them should stand up, but a lot of them, some of them behind the scenes are like, yo, I don't know what to think about this, but you're right. Like, I'm not the same as her. I didn't go through her. I didn't earn those stripes. Right? Like there's something to be said for that. She's got to be protected. And because I say she should be protected, somebody says you're a bad person. Shabbat says, Lord have mercy, look in the mirror. What you see is what the world sees. DC says that's what Dave Chappelle was talking about. And control. Once again, you take sense of self away. All you have left is control. Right? But how dare I not defend my mother? Like, you think my mother would be proud of me? Like, real talk. Like, people do this weird thing. Like, I know my mother. I know my mother would not be proud of me if I sat there and I said, hey, this dude told me that he's gone through the same thing that you have as a woman. She would look at me like I was crazy, like I lost my mind. She would. That's my culture, though. And somebody says to defend my culture is wrong because I'm doing something to somebody else. I've never once. See, this is where they try to get you. This is where they try to mess up on the issue. I have never once decided that, hey, you know what I need to do? I need to beat somebody else up because they believe they're a woman. They'll look for them though. They look hard and they'll find them. They act like every day that they act like in my community, every day there are a bunch of black dudes who are beating up somebody because they're trans. I've never been witness to one. I've never seen one. I've never heard one that's been in the community. I'm not saying I've never seen one put on TikTok, but I've never seen one in the communities I've lived. And I'm telling you, I've been all over the place. I've been in Raleigh. This is just mostly East Coast, but Raleigh, I've been in Houston. And I'm not talking about been for a little bit. I'm talking about been there long enough to where what everybody says is true. And usually it ain't in these places the way that they want you to believe that all of us is poor and busted and disgusted all over the place. But I've been in Houston. I've been in Raleigh. I've been in Columbia, South Carolina. I've been in DC. I've been in New York, right? All 5 of the places that make up New York. I've been in the Chi, if I didn't say that already. I've been in Indianapolis. I've been in Honolulu. I've been, I'm telling you, like, I've been in these places, right? I've been, and the list continues to go on and on. Not one time have I witnessed it. I've been through Nashville, haven't been to Nashville, so to speak, right? But I haven't witnessed this stuff yet. But I keep hearing that that's all we do is we turn around and we whip up on people and we beat them up and we spit on them and we tell. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. He said, but I don't know if they're asking for your protection. Okay, Soul Space Princess. If you don't want my protection, that's fine. But I'm not speaking about you. My wife loves to feel secure and loves to know that her husband can protect her. My mother loved the fact that her son was there to make sure that he wielded everything that she needed to get to, and he was there to protect her. My sister loves it that if she needs to, even though we don't even talk that much in all honesty, but loves it whatever. I didn't say it didn't mean that it didn't happen. What are you doing? See what I'm saying? The conflation. What's going on with that? Because I said that there's somebody out there that tells you that all we do is beat people up. You're saying that see, here comes the opposite side. So that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I didn't say. I said that I've seen it. I said I haven't seen it personally. So people keep telling me that it happens all the time, and I'm like, it doesn't happen all the time. At least not where I am, even though I've seen it. Okay, Soul Princess, I don't know what's going on. Now it's the thing of my statement doesn't even disregard what you said. LOL. Okay. Now it's funny. I don't know. I don't get it. Either way, like I was saying, you got to be in a position where, like, you got to understand, right? Because even me just touched LGBTQ, right? literally became a thing of, right? And I literally was talking about, and I literally was just talking about, hey, well, see, people like that, they get us off. What were we talking about? I'm not even gonna say people like that. That type of situation gets us off. I apologize. Where was I at? Like, so I was even talking about the fact that, like, I don't harbor trans hate or whatever. That was the point, right? That was the point. Our stuff. There you go. I was trying to say that our stuff doesn't. As far as what we're trying to talk about, I'm not trying to put up a system or create a system in which there's some kind of trans hate. That was my overall point, is that I'm not trying to do something like that, and I don't see it. But people cause confusion, and they cause frustration in our community, and they cause people to be against each other in our community because they're trying to say that there's a system that's not. Remember, I'm not saying that there's no issues, but remember, Willie Lynch syndrome, take the differences and make them as big as possible, right? Meanwhile, the same people that will talk about that, right, and talk about not having the trans hate, right, and all this stuff, and how dare you talk about that, and, will be the same person who will just not say, like, does your woman even want your protection? And let me be careful, because I don't want to put the two together. I don't think that's what Salt was saying, and I'm not really dealing with Salt specifically in this, right? So I'm not trying to say that's what she's saying, but you got to understand, people that'll be against the trans thing will be like, hey, let's go ahead and not be in a position, and I don't think we need to do anything that's hating on Salt or anything like that. So, thank you for the defense in the comments, but that's not, I don't know, I don't even really know what she was meaning, so it was hard for me. I didn't, I thank you for the moderator who muted or whatever. I trust you guys. I didn't mute her or anything. I just don't know where that was going or what that was heading. It seemed like, but once again, it comes to a place like, it's like, well, what if they're not asking for your protection? Like, I'm talking about my wife. But what if black women are asking for your protection? Well, then if you're a black woman that's not asking for my protection, I don't force you to be anywhere. You don't have to be under the protection. I just feel like, why not be under the protection of black men? Because obviously I can protect every black person anyways. Why is it wrong to speak correctly? I hear you. We have to be careful, and like I said, this is not for everybody. So I'm not doing this series to say, I obviously knew. That's why I told people when it comes to moderating today, I was like, we're gonna have to be real careful, and I'm going to have to trust you guys today, because I'm talking about racism, and racism is connected to so many different things. Remember, I just said that people don't comprehend. They're messing up. A lot of times we mess up because we start talking about all the things that racism is connected to, and act like that means that it's all the same exact thing. Racism is connected to a lot of different things, right? But it doesn't mean that it is a lot of different things. There seems to be many different versions of PTSD. Well, it's, PTSD, PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome, post-traumatic slave disorder, if you will, post-traumatic stress disorder. It's the same thing, and people are taking different things, right? So even when we talk about, like, our identity as men and women, the first place that we go to is out of racism. People don't want to talk about that, right? Feminism is coming out of the ideology of racism, right? And I mean ideology with that L, not the idea, but the ideal, right? Ideology, like, it's coming out of the ideology of racism. So when a woman says to her husband, be a man, she's usually looking at a Eurocentric value system. On both sides of the equation, it's messed up, right? And when a man says, hey, she's not being a good woman, then he's usually talking about out of racism. How do we know this? Because the first place that a woman's usually going to go to talk about a man is going to be about something financial, or is going to be something about, like, his credit or something like that. Is he wearing a suit and tie? Different things like that. Like, you're going to look to somebody else's stuff that even he can't even control in this system, and you're going to say that that's what's up. And you even see sisters now. I'm done with black men, and they'll say jokingly, well, you know what, you black men, y'all don't got it together, this and that, so I'm done. Say things like that, and you'll hear white men, you'll hear white men, and you'll hear black men, talking about, oh, see, if y'all acted like, women, if y'all acted like white women, the reason why we go to white women is because they submitting this and that, or putting up all these videos. It's the first place we go to discredit our own people, right? You don't really see white women out here talking about, man, men are bad. You know what? If all men were like black men, right? You don't really see that. Right? You don't really see it. You don't hear the Chinese sister talking about, man, you guys are terrible. If y'all just acted like black men, you don't really get that, right? Even people, but we're the only people that do that. We're the only people because of what we've been integrated into. Remember what we talked about earlier. Never talk about integration without talking about what it cost you. What did it cost you to integrate into somebody's system? Because we didn't freely integrate, and we didn't make the terms of our integration. That's another thing people don't want to talk about. Who wrote out the terms of your integration? Who said you're allowed to integrate? I'm sorry, Corbin said, what common foundation does the USA have to communicate if we have no common truth? I mean, the reality is there's not even just common truth. Well, I guess I get what you're saying. You're talking about the truth. We don't even have a truth. The truth. Thanks, Almighty. Appreciate it. Southern says, did they just mute your statement? Just mute who? My statement? You talking about somebody else's? But yeah, so I mean, you're dealing with a lot of different things where people are trying to use issues that don't even go hand in hand, or trying to use statements or different mindsets or whatever that don't even go hand in hand. Then it said, my daughter just graduated and I have no culture to offer her to come back to. Well, you have stuff that you're learning every day now. And I mean, you've set up a culture at least of love and of guidance and of protection. Thank you for the compliment. I didn't catch who said it, but thank you. Oh, Almighty. Thank you. So you have to realize, like, that's what's going on. And we're having these conversations. Once again, it's always culture or lack thereof. And somebody starts speaking of things of a different culture, and it messes with us, and it causes us to be frustrated due to the fact that we have put somebody else above ourselves. That's the culture that you've been raised in. A lot of us have been raised in that. Let's see. DC says integration started just as a request for adequate facilities and learning materials in schools. I'm trying to make sure this doesn't come off as argumentative, DC, so forgive me. I mean, if that were the case, then integration would have started in 1700s. Like, I feel like that's I feel like that's something people use, not saying you particularly, but I'm saying the people that might have started that rhetoric and that conversation. I feel like people use that because I feel like people use it. Thank you, Holy Spirit. I feel like people use that simply because they don't want to admit, that they don't want us to be on their level. We've been, people talk about the same thing in schools. That's been something that's been asked for quite a long time. It still doesn't happen. It still doesn't happen. Really what makes the playing field even is when the parent has to put in the work. The school's not really trying to do that. That's why we just put in the work. We just homeschool. It's an easier, softer way of keeping control. Yeah, like basically segregation would have stayed intact if, I don't think people comprehend this. People think, and by the way, we know slavery didn't really end, right? Because slavery still exists. Slavery is still in the law books. Slavery is something that's still allowed if you're arrested, right? So slavery still exists. But when we talk about slavery ending, I think people think that slavery ended because people woke up and were good people. Slavery ended because the version of slavery that was there didn't make as much money as what the next version was coming, which was capitalism. Like, that's what the fight is. That's what the Declaration of Independence was about. When they wanted to go past the Appalachian Mountains, they wanted to break the treaty that England had made with the native people. They had to go ahead and declare independence against England, fight against their own family members, and then be able to take on slaves all across the what now is known as the United States of America. That's what took place. people talk about Haiti and or people, people do wild stuff like I've seen some videos. In England we stopped slavery in the early 1800s. Like if it wasn't for Haiti and Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques and Dudley Bookman and I always forget our sister's name that was there too, that was there when they had their first prayer, whatever, their voodoo prayer and all that stuff. And all the sisters, of course, they fought. I think 40% of the revolution was women who fought and died, right? So let's not forget our sisters and how much of a cause they had to take up for that. I mean, that's a striking number. 40% of everybody that fought were women. You don't see that in military even to this day. And so that shows you how much our women had to be in there, right? Yeah, my wife said, slavery didn't just end, it became a euphemism. Yeah, a euphemism, excuse me, I said nism, euphemism. Very, very good way to look at it. But the only reason why it doesn't exist the way it is just because it doesn't make as much money to do it that way. Like some people still try to do it, but prison to pipeline is better for slavery. That's why your Nike shoes are made by people in prison, whether they're made in China or the U.S. People forget that, right? That's why it's easy to go get fast food, because they got a lot of stuff that fast food people use that are made in prison. It's cheaper to go and make flights, People want slavery to end, but they don't want those price of flights to come up. So if you want to fly and have a flight that for $30-something, you're going to have a slave make that happen, because somebody's got to make the parts for the plane. If they give it to you, that's why the fight's going on now, where they're just now starting to try and say, okay, we won't pay you $10 an hour, we'll pay you $11.50. You won't come back to work yet? Okay, $12. Oh, you won't come back to work? All right, $12.50. Final offer. And people say, okay, I'll come back for $12.50, as if you really changed anything, right? It is a big jump, so to speak, but you ain't really doing much different. But they're trying to do that because they're like, well, we got to have slave labor. Really, you're dealing with indentured servitude, but really you this close to slave labor. What happened is COVID had people have to take a rest from work. And when people realize and recognize, wait a minute, I'm doing the same stuff in my life. Even if I have $0 coming in, I'm still just surviving. I was just surviving with the job, but I'm just surviving better without the job. That's for them when they realized it was slave labor. They thought it was indentured servitude, but it was actually slave labor, because indentured servitude at some point says, hey, when you work for me at a certain point, you'll be able to get land, you'll be able to do this, you'll be able to do that, and you'll be able to have money to be able to do all these things. We don't even have indentured servitude. You're basically in slavery. People found out, right? And that's what they did in racism. Racism was about slavery, right? You're in debt to me. Right. And then they said, OK, we'll free you up, but then we'll put you on plantations still. We'll lock you up. We'll put you on plantations. You're going to do all this sharecropping and stuff. And we're still going to make sure that you don't understand, because you still don't know how to read or write. So, you're still not going to know what you owe and what you're not supposed to owe. You just still got to believe in whatever. You don't call me master anymore, but I'm still your master, because I'm still your teacher. And I'm going to teach you what it is that you owe me, how much you owe me, how much you don't owe me. I'm going to show you all those things. You're going to listen to Master. And you were dealing with the same thing. And still today, people don't even know you're in two different constitutions. People don't even know that you don't have to pay taxes, right? You're still dealing with Master. Thank you, Corbin. Appreciate that. You said, but no one makes anyone work, and there's a difference between paid and unpaid labor. I mean, yeah, that's the difference between a sharecropper and a slave. There's more control of one's mind and less control of one's body, but the body's still connected to the mind. I mean, you're right. You can choose to work at a place, you can choose not to work, but is it really a choice if you feel like you're not going to work and your baby doesn't have a place to live? And the only place that you can get a place to work at is a place that causes you to have that type of labor, but at least you can say, hey, I do it for the babies. I do it for my babies. My baby's got a place to stay, so it's worth it. And I chose to do this, right? It makes you feel like you had all this choice. Did you really have a choice? To me, a slave and a sharecropper is still the same thing. You're still paying the same master. You're still at the bottom. I guess now you can only be whipped if you get arrested, but if you get arrested, you still get whipped. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm all the way against you. I'm just saying as I think about it, I'm very micro. As I think it through, kind of sounds the same as I've lived through it, lived through the hernia, lived through having two gigs, two jobs, working 80 plus hours a week, standing on my feet, had mental health issues, losing sleep, trying to be as nice as I can, but I'm snapping on people because I'm just tired. Yeah, Yeah, and even what are you passing for with your labor? That's actually a great question too. How can we escape all this? Well, those are things we talk about, sovereignty. I mean, I can't give everything in a live, but we talk about this stuff all the time. If you want to join us on a regular basis, or if you want to look up things that we put on YouTube and study those things, feel free to, but there's tons of stuff we talk about. There's tons of ways that you can help. Some of the stuff we can do as far as even putting money into a pot. People don't want to do that. Put your money into the same place and buy land. That's one of the projects we're working on, Yaz Land Project 83. Like, put money into a pot and buy land. And you don't even have to, if you get your land set up properly and you got stuff going on and you can make sure you can take care of your elderly, you can get rid of your Social Security number. That means it's something that they're trying to use for identification, which is legally, you're not even supposed to legally use a Social Security card. You're not supposed to use a Social Security number for any form of ID. So those of you that are using it for your taxes, using it for your bank, using it for all that stuff, you're not supposed to use any of that. Those of you who use it for the military, you're not supposed to use any of that for identification. It's illegal. You are in a fictitious government doing something illegal. If you have an old school Social Security card, if you got your original, if you want to look up an old school Social Security number, try to see if you can look up an old school Social Security card online on Google Image. See if you can find one. On the right-hand bottom corner of it, you will see clearly that it states that that it is illegal to use this as a form of identification. So if you get into a place in the community where you guys are the same and you can make sure you can take care of your elderly, you don't even need a Social Security number anymore, which means that something that they're not even supposed to use to track you is no longer used. Now, they would use it, they would take it back for themselves. You would just have no right to it, and they'll just make money off of it, but they're making money off of it whether you're attached to it or not. Let them have it and be free. These are simple things that we talk about all the time. We have classes on this stuff too, and the next ones are going to start up at the end of January. Start getting in touch with us if you want to know more information on how to get to make this stuff happen and to be better with it. But I'm just trying to say, like, you got to comprehend that this stuff is there. We just don't study it. We think it's more important to be plugged into the system. We remain plugged into the system. I'm sorry, D said not to get too far off topic, but why did we integrate the schools? We integrated the schools. I mean, the reason why we integrated the schools was the reason that you integrated the rest of society. Remember, they didn't want black people in schools. Right? You remember, like, in the 60s even, was it still in the 60s when the little girl was walking up to the school, right? And she had to be escorted by it wasn't even by the police. The police didn't want her there either. It had to be escorted by the military just to go to school. That little girl is still alive, by the way, for people who talk about this was a long time ago. This woman is what, in her 50s or 60s? Her 60s now? Still alive. Still had to raise babies with that tension and everything, passing down generational curse to generational curse to generational curse. Hopefully she broke out of it. I don't know, right? I don't know her personally. However, like, think about that. Like, that was just in the 60s. The reason why they did that is because it comes down to the dollar. At the end of the day, all right, if we're going to do this and we're going to set this stuff up and we're going to make sure that you guys are coming in or whatever, like, it comes to the dollar. Are we able to make money off of these people? Now you got to start asking yourself the question, how did they make money off of the schools come together? That's the real question. If what I'm saying is correct, that you just chased the dollars, found out what's going on, you got to start asking yourself, how much money came when things got integrated? Because I'm going to tell you this, when schools got integrated, black communities started making less money. So you got to start asking yourself, where did that money go to? That's the rabbit hole you want to go down. If you want to really know the answer, like, it's an answer I couldn't really just give you in a few words. You got to study that. You got to look at that for yourself and say, because it's not, I'll say it like this. It'll make basic sense, but it's not really going to make sense to you and hit you the way it needs to till you study it, all right? If black people started making less money in schools, what happens? That means that black people who are less educated had less business, went to less colleges, had less schools for themselves, right? Because if the schools become integrated, that means they're no longer black schools, right? If the schools are no longer integrated and they belong to the government, see, these schools were not black-owned schools. These were government schools that black people were allowed to go to. If I say that the school's no longer integrated, they still made the school less. The school didn't get better when they became integrated, and white students didn't necessarily come there that long. When the white students started showing up, though, that meant that certain things had to change. That meant that certain neighborhoods had to change because white students, white parents of white students didn't want white children coming to black neighborhoods that they felt weren't adequate, which means that you have to start getting rid of black stores, and you have to start getting rid of black neighborhoods, and you have to start putting highways in the midst of black neighborhoods and things of that nature. And then you need to start cleaning up the school. And then when you start to see the schools there, you can allow a couple black people to go through there, but it's going to become a predominantly white institution, because you can't have white children showing up to a black school and white children going through what black people go through, and white children having to drive through what black people drive through, and white children possibly having to go through the same type of crime and stuff, because we know all of these black people, according to that society, they're all black beasts that are just trying to hurt and maim each other. We wouldn't want that to happen to our white children. So you got to change the community in order to change the school. So the black community makes even less money than what it was making, or it might have been making money fine before segregation, but they got to be broken up in order to bring white students in. That's why a lot of HBCUs aren't necessarily as black, percentage-wise, don't have as many black people as what a lot of people think. A lot of them have a lot more white people than you would think are there, because we're not going to have white people showing up to HBCUs. And there's all these black people there. You're going to have to scale that back. I mean, fine, we'll deal with 75%, but we ain't going to have it be like 99%. But go down the rabbit hole of those type of things, that type of mentality, I'm sorry, I missed the first part. Blow Smoke said something in job and don't give. And job, don't give a damn. I missed the first part. I apologize. I'm looking for it now. Ruby Bridges is her name. Yeah, thank you for that. My wife said no clean water, healthcare support, but USA is the best over the rest of the world that have it. You want to join the class? How can you find? So you can go to our website, once again, Kofi-Ofori.com, Kofi-Ofori.com, or, we're getting ready to take our leave anyways. Let me just put the information up. You can text us at this number right here, and I will get back to you, or someone will get back to you. Usually it'll be me at our earliest convenience. Give me a second. I am tired. I was tired Actually, I was really tired when I got up early this rising. I don't know what's going on. I might need to rest a little bit. I got a lot of appointments, but I might need to rest a little bit today. But yeah, our next classes aren't going to start till January, so we got a little bit of time, to the end of January. So we got a little bit of time. I tried to take a little break. One point I was trying to do like 5 different semesters in 1 year. It's just too much. So I try to do about 4 sessions, because when we get into them, I'm doing stuff all day long and end up doing like 3 to 4 lives, let alone life coaching, marital coaching, trying to figure out land stuff, all this stuff, doing things for the community, doing videos. Now my son has a YouTube channel as well, that I'm basically over. So, or, his mother and I, but I do, the editing of the videos and stuff. So it's just, I have to take breaks in between. So we finished up, like at the beginning of December, beginning of this month. So I got like a nice little month and a half of breathing before I have to go into making sure I have lessons plans and all that stuff together all the time. But yeah, you can DM me as well. You can DM us, ask for information. We can get you, the numbers and everything to text, or we can set up a communication. My wife and I can talk to you about the classes and all that. But yeah, just feel free to contact us. This is the number. We have a 202 number, which we'll give you as well if down the road, because a lot of the stuff, a lot of the links and everything we try to send don't necessarily work well through this system. But it's 410 714-5078. I don't know if you can see it. They got so much stuff on here now. It's hard for you guys to see stuff. It used to be easy. As I've been on here longer, there's so much stuff they keep adding. But you got Kofi-Ofori.com, Kofi-Ofori.com. You have 410-714-5078. So check that out as we get ready to take our leave. And thank you for the interest in the courses. Let's see. We're indoctrinated. Yeah, we're indoctrinated. Mass indoctrination, Lil Lock said. Yep. Band 50 said, why? I don't know what that was about. He said that's where you get private schools from. Yeah, real talk. Schools that you don't have to worry about anybody else, and they can be in. A lot of times it's interesting. Private schools are not always in great neighborhoods. I've been in some really bad neighborhoods and not even realized what that was, and asked somebody after being there several times, like, what is that over there? Oh, that's a private school. And I look at the school over here and look at the school over there, and it clicks like, oh, okay. That's where the money's at. You said Martin Luther King Jr. pushed what narrative, that we all had to get along? Yeah, I believe that King was off a little bit, and I always tell people I'm more Martin than Malcolm, more Malcolm than Martin. However, I don't forget that Martin, at the end of the day, no matter how you feel about him, he laid his life down. He is our ancestor, and he died because he started sounding more like Malcolm. They didn't kill him until he started sounding like Malcolm. But people forget at the end of his life, just because he was saying it, where he was hooping and hollering a little bit, don't forget that he was saying what Malcolm was saying when he died. We all of us do this weird thing where it's like 1963 is the end of Martin. Like 1963, we just think of I Have a Dream speech. For the longest time, I remember as a child, because that's how they taught it in school. He said, I had a dream, and he got shot. Like, that was not his last speech. Like, he went from 1963, that was 1963, he didn't die till 68. We forget that Martin was a young man too. Martin and Malcolm were young when they died. They were young men when they started in this. We forget, so they had a chance to grow. But I'm not necessarily against you. Yeah, he was saying the wrong thing. He was taught the wrong thing. Like we said about Gandhi, he tried to follow Gandhi. He thought Gandhi was a righteous man and a great example of nonviolence to follow. Even though, if you remember, he was a young man when he first started, and they put him in charge of the Southern Baptist Conference, or the whatever Baptist Conference, whatever it was. When they put him in charge, but when he got voted in, they said the only way that they would follow him and vote him in, he was going to have to support nonviolence. That wasn't his decision. He didn't think nonviolence was going to work. Don't forget about the deacons that used to follow him, right? He had the deacons that would be posted wherever he went, and they carried guns. His deacons didn't believe in nonviolence, because they were like, well, you out there being nonviolent, we're going to make sure nobody shoots you. Right? So when he would preach in these churches and stuff, they had people that were there armed and ready to go. So, let's not forget, Martin didn't want to do nonviolence. He patterned this stuff after Gandhi. We're taught that he loved Gandhi and loved Gandhi's teachings, and he